I divorced my husband because he cheated on me 3 years ago with my younger sister. When I received their wedding invitation, it felt like a double betrayal, especially when my mother said she would attend the ceremony. Feeling betrayed by everyone close to me, my mother cryptically added, "I'll do something fun, you just wait and see." Determined to exact my own justice, Aita, who had once trained and guided him at our shared workplace where I was his boss, devised a plan. Initially, he had been nervous and uncertain in his role, but over time, our relationship grew beyond professional. His proposal came after he excelled in his job and won praise from our superiors. Our wedding went smoothly, and even my sister Kate, who had quickly befriended him, praised his kindness and ambition. However, after about a year of marriage, he began arriving home late, avoiding conversations about work, and spending less time with me. Feeling neglected, I suggested a spa getaway, hoping to reconnect. "I've booked a spa trip for us next month," I told him one day, hoping to rekindle our relationship. "Huh. Oh, is that next week?" he replied absent-mindedly. "I forgot to mention, I have to go on a business trip next weekend." "What? But you've known about the spa trip for quite some time." "Well, it's work, so it can't be helped." "I see." Lamb's apartment seemed busier than ever with frequent business trips. It appeared I had no choice but to give up on our spa plans this time as well. As always, Lamb left early the next morning for his business trip. If things had gone as planned, we would have been heading to the spa together by now, I thought, feeling disappointed. Just then, the hotel called. Despite my cancellation email, they hadn't received it due to an error and called to confirm our arrival time. That's right, maybe I'll invite Kate, I considered, dialing my parents' house. Unfortunately, Kate had been out all morning and wouldn't be back. As a last resort, I decided to invite my mother to the spa. Compared to my sister, I half expected Mom to decline on such short notice, but to my surprise, she agreed. "Really? Is it okay to leave Dad alone?" I asked. "Right now, I'm more worried about you than your father," she replied, sensing my recent low spirits and deciding to accompany me on the trip. "Thanks, Mom," I said gratefully. "I'm the one who should be thanking you. I'm happy we could take this trip together like this," I told my mother gratefully. It had been a long time since we had enjoyed a trip together. However, upon arriving at the hotel, my mother and I witnessed something shocking. "Mom, look at that," I whispered, pointing discreetly. There, at the hotel entrance, was Liam. He was supposed to be on his business trip, but he appeared happy, arm in arm with another woman as they entered the hotel where we were supposed to stay. "You've got to be kidding," I murmured in disbelief. The woman with Liam turned briefly in our direction. It was Kate, my own sister. After that moment, I was in a state of shock and barely remembered how we got back home. My mother made me some tea, and slowly, my feelings began to calm. He had been deceiving me, I finally realized aloud, feeling betrayed not only by Liam but also by Kate. After regaining my composure, I called Liam's department. As suspected, they hadn't sent him on any recent business trips. In fact, they had been reducing workloads and avoiding overtime for years. When Liam came home late or was supposedly on business trips, Kate wasn't home either. I explained to my mother, who listened quietly. So, all those times he was meeting Kate, I concluded bitterly. Filled with anger rather than sadness, I made a decision. "Mother, I'm going to divorce Liam. I can't bear to see Kate right now, so I won't be visiting the house for a while," I declared firmly. My mother remained silent, understanding my emotions completely. "I'll prepare everything before Liam comes back," I added, determined to take control of the situation. I had already prepared the divorce papers, signed a lease for a new apartment where I could live temporarily before moving into my new house, and packed all my belongings. Leaving Liam's letter along with the divorce papers at our former home, I made it clear that all matters regarding alimony and legalities would be handled by my lawyer, and then proceeded to block all communication from him. To keep my new address confidential, I didn't inform my parents, despite working in the same company where we occasionally crossed paths. Each time, I chose to ignore him completely. Seeing the futility of the situation, Liam quickly agreed to the divorce. He didn't disclose the reasons to our colleagues, but they seemed to sense the situation and respected my privacy, avoiding the topic of our divorce entirely. 3 years passed with me keeping my distance not only from Liam but also from my family. One evening after returning from work, I found my mother waiting for me in my apartment. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, surprised. I have something to tell you, she said quietly, handing me an invitation. This is from Liam and Kate, she explained. It turned out that Kate had left our family home and moved in with Liam. I thought they might get married, but I never expected them to have a wedding ceremony and invite our parents. So, Mom, are you going? I asked hesitantly. Of course I am, she replied calmly. I see. I was the only one who couldn't forgive the two of them yet. Clearly, they must have known, which was why they invited only our parents to the wedding. I felt I had no right to say anything, having distanced myself from both Liam and my parents. Seeing my sadness, my mother smiled reassuringly and said, Don't worry, I'm not going because I forgive them. Just you wait and watch. On the day of the wedding, my mother called me via video. I don't want to see their faces, I murmured, tempted to end the call. But then I recalled my mother's earlier words and stayed connected. The screen displayed a slideshow in progress. The MC began introducing the slides. This slideshow was made by the bride's mother, the MC explained. She gathered photos from her beloved daughter's birth to the present and created this presentation. I was surprised that my mother, who wasn't particularly tech-savvy, had managed to create such a heartfelt slideshow, yet it stirred up a mix of emotions within me. Mom, you went to this much effort for Kate, I questioned sadly. But in the next moment, I found myself captivated by what appeared on the screen. This isn't Kate, I realized aloud. The slideshow had begun with a photo of me. When she was born, so cute. There's a resemblance, remarked the guests as they watched with a relaxed atmosphere. Kate's expression, however, stiffened as the MC continued. Since she was young, the bride has always been devoted to her family. She was a diligent student who successfully entered her desired university. After starting her job, she became a very reliable employee at the company, the MC narrated. Kate's friends and colleagues, who knew about her student days and workplace, began to buzz with excitement. Hey, isn't that a photo from the welcome party at university? Kate didn't go to such a good university, did she? Wait, isn't that a photo from the company's welcome party? Wait a minute, looking closely, it's completely different. If this isn't Kate. Liam also seemed to have noticed. What the hell is this? This isn't Kate. Unaware of the bride and groom's pale faces, the MC continued advancing the slides. And then she met the groom, Liam, at the company. According to the bride's mother, she initially taught and trained the groom as his instructor. Then the two got married. Photos from Emma's wedding with Liam followed. The MC couldn't hide their confusion. Realizing something was wrong, they fell silent. At that moment, my mother took the stage and grabbed the microphone. From here on, I'll take over and explain, she announced smoothly, advancing the slides. Even after marriage, my daughter supported him both personally and professionally. However, as Liam got busier, he couldn't find time for her, so my daughter planned a spa trip to help relieve his stress. Wait, please, Liam tried to interject, but my mother ignored him, continuing with the slides. The next photo showed them entering the spa hotel together, very close to each other. Finally, photos of the bride and groom appeared, silencing both the MC and the guests. However, Liam and Kate grew even paler. Liam declined the trip planned by my daughter due to a business trip, my mother continued, saying it couldn't be helped that he had to go for work. My daughter invited me to the spa trip, and that's where we witnessed his affair. With those words, everyone started talking and buzzing about what my mother had revealed. An affair? And this wedding is for Kate and Liam, right? Could it be that this wedding is based on their affair? But why would Kate's mother? To answer the guests' questions, my mother continued slowly. Liam swore to marry my beloved daughter Emma and make her happy. Instead, he betrayed her. To make matters worse, he cheated on Emma with her own sister Kate. Mother, stop it already. Today is my wedding day. Why won't you celebrate my happiness? Kate cried out, trying to stop her mother. But my mother coldly looked at Kate and said, I have always wished for your happiness, but you were the one who ruined it first. My mother-in-law's voice was stern. Emma always considered not only herself but also the happiness of her family. What about you, Kate? Have you ever thought about how much Emma would be hurt by your actions? Well, Kate hesitated, looking uncomfortable. She always seems so happy. It's not fair. Instead of being happy for your family, you just got jealous, huh? Mother-in-law, please stop. She is your precious daughter too, right? If that's the case, can't you celebrate our new beginning? Kate pleaded. Why are you doing this? I don't want to become family with someone as dishonest as you. I saw it clearly at today's ceremony. My mother's voice grew more assertive. If you really intend to start something with Kate, why didn't you invite a single person from your own company? If you're going to have such a grand ceremony, shouldn't you apologize to Emma? It's selfish to invite me and her father to the wedding without making any effort like that. But Emma has been ignoring me all this time, Liam interjected defensively. Of course she has. After what you've done, it's only natural, my mother retorted sharply. But that's all in the past, isn't it? Do you think her wounds will heal in just 3 years? Do you think you can regain our trust in such a short time? Don't be ridiculous. My mother concluded with finality. After those words, my mother angrily left the venue with my father. I could hear her voice from the cell phone. Did you see that, Emma? Yes, I replied quietly. I'm sorry for reminding you of painful things. I just can't stand seeing those two act like nothing happened. No, thank you. I feel relieved. It's like you said everything I wanted to say. That's right, Emma. You always keep everything to yourself. I thought it was just too kind of you to not tell your colleagues the reason for your divorce. After that, my mother sent me a recording of her conversation with Liam during the wedding. Indeed, as my mother said, even if time passes, it's not easy to forget. Moreover, Liam showed no signs of remorse whatsoever, calling it a thing of the past. I decided to begin my second life by giving Liam a fitting punishment. I chose to confront him during a company presentation. The opportunity arose during a company-wide presentation where volunteers from various departments could participate. Swiftly signing up, I entered the conference room. When it was Liam's turn to speak, his supervisor, unaware of his remarriage, commented, "Liam, you seem even more motivated today. Must be because you just got married." "Yes, I will do my best for my family," Liam replied, sounding genuinely happy. He should have known I was present, but that only strengthened my resolve. I played the recorded audio I received from my mother. The sudden noise from the audio surprised the participants, but as they learned about Liam's affair with my sister after marrying me, accusations began to fly. "Liam, didn't you claim the reason for our divorce was a difference in values?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, really? Well, I can't understand a value that involves cheating with your own wife's sister." I apologize for bringing personal matters into this important presentation, I continued. As of today, I have decided to resign. I have tolerated being in this company because I value it, but I can no longer work in the same place as him. As I moved to leave, the board members intervened to stop me. "Wait a minute, Emma," one of them spoke up. "You're an invaluable asset to our company. If anyone should leave, it should be Liam." "But I've always been seen as having a promising future here," I protested. "We had high expectations for you in the past, but lately, your performance has declined. Your focus has waned, and it seems you've lost the problem-solving abilities you once had," another board member explained. Meanwhile, Kate, who had been incompetent with household chores even when living with her parents, became a full-time housewife after marrying Liam. She left most of the housework to him, causing him stress at work. Unable to offer him the support I once could, his performance suffered further. News of his affair with his wife's sister spread throughout the company, tarnishing his reputation. During the board meeting, it was decided that I would stay at the company while Liam would be transferred to a remote location with the likelihood of being laid off in the future. Kate, who had enjoyed a comfortable life as a housewife with Liam's support, abandoned him when she discovered his financial troubles. She moved on to another man, only to find out he was a freeloader burdened with debts. Now, she works 2 jobs day and night to make ends meet. As the saying goes, what goes around comes around. Watching Liam and Kate struggle, I finally felt ready to start anew. 3.5.
The sound of shattering glass downstairs makes my hands freeze over my laptop keyboard. I know exactly what's happening. Another fight between my son and his wife. Their voices rising through the old heating vents of our family home like angry ghosts. I'm Ariel, and I've spent 30 years in this house on Willow Lane. Now I share it with my son Mark and his wife Olivia, who used to be my ex-husband's assistant before she became my daughter-in-law. Funny how life works out sometimes. "You never listen." Olivia's voice pierces through the floor. "This house is suffocating me." My fingers curl into fists. The nerve of that woman, complaining about my home. The home where I raised Mark alone after Daniel left, where every scratch on the hardwood tells a story of our life together. "Keep your voice down," Mark pleads. "Mom's working upstairs." "Of course, your precious mother. Always your mother first. I should turn up my music, drown them out like I usually do. Instead, I find myself moving to the heating vent, pressing my ear against the metal grate. "That's not fair," Mark says. "You knew what this house meant to us when you moved in." "What it means to her, you mean? God forbid anyone suggests changes around here. We're living in a museum to your childhood, Mark." Another crash. This time I recognize the sound. The blue ceramic vase that sat on our entry table for decades. My throat tightens. "Jesus, Olivia, that was Mom's favorite." "Oh, please, it was ugly anyway. This whole place needs updating. We could sell it, buy something modern." My blood runs cold. Sell my house over my dead body. "We're not selling." Mark's voice hardens. "This discussion is over." Like all our discussions lately. "You know what? I'm going to Karen's. Don't wait up." The front door slams so hard the family photos rattle on my office wall. I hear Mark's heavy footsteps, followed by the gentle sweep of a broom against broken ceramic. My phone buzzes, a text from Karen, my closest friend. "Heads up, Hurricane Olivia heading my way. Again." I type back. "Thanks for the warning. Blue vase casualty this time." "That bitch," Karen replies. "Want me to poison her wine?" Despite everything, I smile. Karen's dark humor has been my lifeline these past 2 years, ever since Mark announced his engagement to the woman who helped destroy my marriage. Downstairs, Mark is still sweeping. I should go help him, comfort him. But I remain frozen, remembering another night of broken things. The night Daniel told me he was leaving. He'd been so calm about it, explaining how he and his young assistant had connected on a deeper level. Now, here I am, watching history repeat itself through my son's eyes. My laptop screen has gone dark. The article I was working on, Building Resilient Family Bonds, for the local paper's lifestyle section, seems laughably ironic now. I close the laptop and move to my window seat, the one overlooking our maple-lined street. Olivia's red sports car, Daniel's wedding gift to her, screeches away from the curb. 2 houses down, I see our neighbor Ethan pause his gardening to watch her go. He catches my eye in the window and shakes his head slightly. He's witnessed enough of these scenes to understand. The sound of breaking glass echoes in my memory, mixing with Olivia's words about selling my home, my sanctuary, my legacy to Mark. A familiar anger burns in my chest, but this time it's different, sharper, more focused. I've spent 2 years trying to accept her, to keep the peace for Mark's sake. But now, I pull out my phone again and text Karen. "About that wine. Let's talk. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become the very thing you fear. I've learned that lesson before. Time to put it into practice." 3 days after the vase incident, I'm pruning my roses when Daniel's black Mercedes pulls into the driveway. My garden shears snap shut with more force than necessary, severing a healthy stem along with the dead one. "Still butchering those poor plants, I see." His voice carries that familiar note of amusement that used to make me smile. Now it just makes my fingers tighten around the shears. "What are you doing here, Daniel?" He holds up a manila envelope. "Bringing the papers Mark asked for. Something about the house insurance." Of course, Mark mentioned needing those. What he didn't mention was asking his father to deliver them. "I'll take them." I reach out, but Daniel doesn't release the envelope immediately. "You look good, Ariel." His eyes drift to the house. Place looks exactly the same. Some of us value stability. The words come out sharper than intended, and I watch his expression shift. "Mom?" Mark appears on the front porch, Olivia close behind him. "Dad, you made it." The pieces click together. This isn't just about insurance papers. We're having lunch, Mark announces, his voice carrying that forced cheerfulness I've come to dread. All of us, as a family. Olivia slides her arm through Mark's, beaming. She's wearing the pearl necklace Daniel gave her for the wedding, the one that used to belong to his mother. My mother-in-law had promised it to me once. Surprise, she chirps. I thought it would be nice to clear the air after, well, you know. I do know. She wants to play happy families after destroying my vase and threatening to sell my home. The garden shears feel dangerous in my hand. I've made reservations at Bellamy's, Mark adds quickly. Your favorite place, Mom? Was my favorite place. Before Daniel took Olivia there while they were sneaking around behind my back. I have plans with Karen, I lie. I called Karen, Olivia interjects. She said you're free. Of course she did. My best friend, outmaneuvered by my son's wife. I'll need to have a word with Karen about loyalty. Please, Mom. Mark's eyes, so like his father's, plead with me. Just lunch. The four of us sit at a corner table at Bellamy's 30 minutes later. I order a martini, extra dirty. I'll need it. So, Daniel clears his throat. Mark tells me you're still writing for the paper? Among other things. I take a long sip. How's the accounting firm? Expanding. We just opened a new branch in... Oh, tell them about the promotion. Olivia interrupts, touching Daniel's arm with familiar ease. Daniel's made me head of client relations. The olive in my martini suddenly looks like a perfect projectile. That's wonderful news, Mark says, but his eyes dart to me. It is, I agree, my voice honey-sweet. Though I'm surprised you have time for work, Olivia, with all your plans for renovating my house. The table goes quiet. Olivia's smile tightens. Our house, she corrects gently, and I just think some updates would increase its value. Its value to whom? The martini glass clinks as I set it down too hard. The potential buyers you're so eager to find? Mom, Mark warns. No, let's be honest for once. I lean forward. That's what this lunch is really about, isn't it? Softening me up for the big pitch? What's next? Daniel offering to be the listing agent. Daniel shifts uncomfortably. Bingo. Actually, he starts, but Olivia cuts him off. We're pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. Mark looks as stunned as I feel. Clearly, this wasn't part of the planned script. 8 weeks, Olivia continues, her hand moving to her still flat stomach. We need more space, Ariel. A nursery, a fresh start. My grandson or granddaughter. In my house, or rather, in whatever modern monstrosity Olivia plans to drive me from. I stand up, my chair scraping against the floor. Congratulations, excuse me. In the restaurant's elegant bathroom, I grip the marble counter and stare at my reflection. Behind me, the door opens. Olivia? I was going to tell Mark tonight, she says softly, but I thought you should know why this matters so much to me. To us. Us. Always us. The way she says it reminds me of Daniel's words years ago. Olivia and I, we're an us now. I turn to face her, and for the first time, I smile genuinely. Because now I know exactly what I need to do. You're right, I tell her. Everything needs to change. Starting with you, I add silently. The layoff notice sits on my desk like a loaded gun. After 15 years at the paper, they're restructuring. Karen texts that half the editorial department got the same email. I should feel devastated, but all I can think about is Olivia's smug face at breakfast this morning, touching her still flat stomach while discussing nursery colors. My phone rings. It's Mark. Mom, have you checked your email? Just did. I keep my voice steady. I'll be fine. That's the thing. He hesitates. Olivia got laid off too, from Dad's firm. The coincidence is too perfect. I sit up straighter. Daniel laid her off? Budget cuts, apparently. She's pretty upset. Of course she is. Her perfect plan is unraveling. The timing's terrible with the baby and everything. Mark continues. I was thinking, since you're both home now. I close my eyes. No, Mom, please, just until she finds something new. She can help around the house, keep you company. Keep me company? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. In my own home? Our home, he corrects gently, echoing Olivia's words from the restaurant. Please, Mom, for me? That's how I end up sharing my kitchen with Olivia 3 days later, watching her reorganize my cabinets while humming to herself. She's moved all my spices to different shelves, claiming it's more efficient. The cinnamon's always gone next to the nutmeg, I say, gripping my coffee mug. For 30 years. Change is good. She reaches for another shelf. Oh, what's this? She's found the old recipe box, the one with Daniel's mother's handwriting. Before I can stop her, she's opening it. These are gorgeous. We should digitize them, create a family cookbook. Put it back. She blinks at my tone. I just thought, that's the problem. You're always just thinking about how to improve things that aren't yours to improve. The recipe box trembles slightly in her hands. I'm trying to help, Ariel, to be part of this family. By taking my job, my house, my son. Your job? Her eyes narrow. What are you implying? Quite a coincidence, don't you think? Both of us losing our jobs the same week you announce your pregnancy? She sets the recipe box down carefully. You think Daniel fired me because of you? I think nothing happens by accident where you're concerned. The kitchen door swings open. Mark stands there, looking between us. Everything okay? Perfect, Olivia says, her voice wobbling. Your mother was just explaining how I orchestrated my own layoff to, what exactly? Force my way into living here? That's not what No, please. She presses a hand to her stomach. Tell Mark how I'm manipulating everyone, how I stole his father, and now I'm stealing his childhood home. Olivia, Mark starts, but she's already pushing past him. I need air, she announces, heading for the front door. Mark turns to me, his expression a perfect mirror of his father's disappointment. Really, Mom? She's playing you, I snap, just like she played your father. She's carrying my child, and that makes her immune to criticism? The front door slams. Through the kitchen window, I watch Olivia hurry across the lawn. She stops at the sidewalk, one hand still on her stomach, the other wiping her eyes. Ethan, my neighbor, is getting his mail. He says something to Olivia, who shakes her head. Then he looks toward my window, catching my eye. His expression is unreadable. I know this is hard, Mark says quietly, but she's trying. And that's my baby she's carrying, your grandchild. Can't you at least try, too? He leaves me alone in the kitchen. The recipe box sits where Olivia left it, slightly askew. I open it, finding the card for Daniel's mother's apple pie, the one Olivia always claimed was her specialty at family gatherings. My phone buzzes. A text from Karen. Heard about the layoff. Wine tonight? I look out the window again. Olivia's gone, but Ethan's still there, pretending to check his mail while watching my house. He's worked in human resources for 20 years. Maybe he'd know if layoffs at 2 different companies could really be coincidental. I text Karen back. Rain check. Have some research to do. Then I take a photo of the recipe card and send it to Mark with a simple message. Ask your wife to make this for dinner. Grandmother's special recipe. See what she says. Sometimes the truth hides in the smallest details, and I'm done being the only one who sees them. The real estate brochure falls from between Olivia's pregnancy journal, scattering glossy photos of modern homes across my bedroom floor. I shouldn't have been snooping, but something about her whispered phone calls in the garden drew me to search her things while she was at her prenatal appointment. My hands shake as I gather the papers. 3 properties, all newly built, all with perfect for growing families, splashed across their descriptions. On the back of one, Olivia's handwriting, possible comps for Willow Lane listing. The front door slams downstairs. Ariel, you home? I stuff the brochures under my sweater just as Olivia appears in my doorway, glowing with that particular radiance that makes Mark look at her like she's made of gold. What are you doing in my room? Her voice stays sweet, but her eyes narrow. My room, I correct her. My house, remember? She rests one hand on her slightly swelling belly. The doctor says stress isn't good for the baby. Neither is lying to my son. I don't know what you mean. She moves closer, and I catch a whiff of Daniel's favorite perfume on her. But since you're here, I wanted to discuss some ideas for the nursery. This room has the best light. My room. The baby needs space, Ariel. We all do. Surely you can understand that. The brochures crinkle against my ribs as I step around her. I understand perfectly. I find Mark in his home office, focused on his laptop. He doesn't look up when I enter, probably expecting Olivia with another paint sample or nursery design. Your wife's been house hunting. That gets his attention. What? I pull out the brochures, letting them fall onto his keyboard. She's already pricing out our home's value. Mom, these could be for... Read the notes on the back. He does. His face doesn't change, but his shoulders tense. I'll talk to her. Like you talked to her about the recipe? Did she ever make that pie? She wasn't feeling well. She never feels well when proof might expose her lies. Mark pushes back from his desk. Stop, just stop. You're seeing conspiracies everywhere. Because they're everywhere. First our jobs, now this. Actually, he cuts in. About that, Dad called. He's offering Olivia her position back, with a promotion. The room tilts slightly. Of course he is. What's that supposed to mean? Ask yourself why Daniel would fire her, then rehire her weeks later with better pay. Unless it was all orchestrated to force her to move in here. Or maybe, Mark's voice hardens, he recognizes her talent and wants to support his family, his grandchild. My phone buzzes, a text from Ethan. Found something interesting about those layoffs. Coffee? You're not listening to me, I tell Mark, but he's already turning back to his work. No, Mom, you're not listening to anyone but yourself. I leave him there, crossing the lawn to Ethan's house. He's waiting on his porch with 2 steaming mugs and a manila folder. Your ex-husband's firm never had layoffs, he says without preamble. I checked with industry contacts. Olivia was the only one let go. My hands curl around the hot mug. And the newspaper? That was real. But the timing? He slides a document from the folder. Daniel bought shares in the parent company 3 months ago, enough to influence board decisions. The coffee burns my throat. He orchestrated both layoffs. Looks that way? Question is, why? From across the street, I see Olivia watching us through my living room window. She lifts her hand in a small wave, almost taunting. Because she needed a reason to move in, I say, to take over, and Daniel's helping her do it. Ethan studies me carefully. What are you going to do? I think of the brochures, the recipe test, the careful manipulation of my son. I'm going to prove it, all of it. Be careful, he warns. Pregnant women make sympathetic victims. And what about mothers protecting their children? What do we make? His answer is lost in the sound of a car door. Daniel's Mercedes pulls into my driveway, and Olivia hurries out to meet him. They speak briefly, heads close together, before she glances our way again. I stand, leaving my coffee untouched. Thank you for this. Ariel. Ethan's voice stops me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to others. It's what you prevent them from doing to you. I nod, watching Daniel and Olivia disappear into my house, into my son's life, into my carefully built world. Prevention might be too late, but revelation? That's just beginning. Ethan's laptop screen glows in his darkened kitchen as he shows me the email thread he recovered. My hands grip the counter so hard my knuckles whiten. 3 months before your layoff, he points out, Daniel and Olivia planning everything. The emails detail their scheme, orchestrated job losses, the calculated pregnancy announcement, even the real estate agent they'd contacted about Willow Lane's potential market value. There's more, Ethan says quietly, about Mark's job. My head snaps up. What about it? Daniel's been blocking his promotion opportunities, keeping him dependent, tied to the house. A car door slams outside. Through Ethan's window, I watch Olivia waddle up my driveway, shopping bags in hand. 4 months pregnant now, and she's wearing it like a crown. I need copies, I tell him. Ariel. He closes the laptop. What are you planning? The shopping bags rustle as Olivia struggles with her keys. Without thinking, I move to help her, but stop myself. Let her struggle. Nothing yet. I turn back to Ethan, but I need ammunition. Be careful. Revenge has a way of... This isn't revenge. The words come out sharp. This is protection. His silence speaks volumes. Back home, I find Olivia in my kitchen, unpacking what looks like an entire Williams-Sonoma store. My mother's old copper pots are stacked in a corner, replaced by gleaming stainless steel. Oh good, you're here, she chirps. Help me organize these? The nesting instinct is going crazy today. I pick up one of my displaced pots. Where are these going? Goodwill, probably. They're so outdated. They're family heirlooms. She sighs, one hand on her belly. Ariel, we've talked about this. The baby needs a clean, modern environment. All these old things harbor dust, bacteria. The only thing harboring toxins in this house is... The front door opens. Mark's voice calls out, Mom, Liv, big news. Olivia's face lights up with practiced radiance. I set the pot down harder than necessary. Mark bursts in, waving papers. They're offering me a position in Seattle. Better pay, full benefits. Seattle? My voice sounds distant. It's perfect timing. Olivia gushes. The housing market there is amazing. We could get twice the space for what this place would sell for. The room spins slightly. I grip the counter. Mom? Mark's excitement falters. Say something. Your father knows about this offer? He recommended me for it. Mark beams. Said it's time I spread my wings. Of course he did. Get Mark out of the way. Let Olivia handle the sale. Daniel's fingerprints are all over this. We can't leave you alone in this big house. Olivia adds sweetly. It's not safe. You should sell. Get something manageable. Near us, maybe? My phone buzzes. Another text from Ethan. Found the real estate listing. They've already taken photos. Mom? Mark touches my arm. You okay? I look at my son, Daniel's eyes, my stubborn chin, and see the boy who once promised never to leave me like his father did. Then I look at Olivia, wearing Daniel's mother's pearls while plotting to erase every trace of our family's history. I need air, I manage, pushing past them. In the garden, my roses are gone, replaced by Olivia's drought-resistant landscaping. The maple tree where Mark carved his initials, scheduled for removal next week. Every change small enough to seem reasonable, but together forming a complete erasure. My phone buzzes again. Karen this time. Girl, you need to see this. Olivia's Pinterest board, My Future Home, Seattle edition. Your furniture's not in any of the photos. I sink onto the patio steps, surrounded by unfamiliar plants in a garden I no longer recognize. Through the kitchen window, I watch Mark hold Olivia from behind, his hands on her growing belly, while she continues unpacking her new kitchen equipment. The copper pots catch the afternoon light. 5 generations of family dinners, holidays, celebrations, reduced to goodwill donations. I pull up Ethan's email screenshots, then open my contacts. Daniel's number stares back at me. One call could expose everything: the manipulation, the scheming, the calculated destruction of my world. But would Mark believe it? Or would I become the bitter ex-wife, the difficult mother-in-law trying to sabotage his happiness? My finger hovers over Daniel's number. In the kitchen, Olivia laughs at something Mark says, her hand protectively cradling her stomach. My grandchild, the ultimate shield. I press call. Sometimes protection requires destruction, and I've learned from the best. The baby shower invitations mock me from my kitchen table, pink and gold foil, announcing a welcome baby girl celebration in my home this weekend. My home, which Olivia has transformed into something unrecognizable, all without asking. I pick up one invitation. The party date is circled in red, the same day as my wedding anniversary. Daniel would remember that. Olivia, too. My phone buzzes with Daniel's response to last night's call. Let's discuss this in person. Coming by this afternoon. The doorbell rings just as I'm pouring my second bourbon. Olivia's voice floats up from downstairs, greeting guests for what she calls a pre-shower planning committee. I don't move from my study. Let them plan their party. Let them celebrate the next generation of manipulation. Mom? Mark knocks softly. Everyone's asking for you. I'm working. He opens the door anyway, frowning at the bourbon. It's 2 p.m. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I sound like my mother. God help me. Dad's downstairs. Of course he is. The gang's all here. Downstairs, the living room has been transformed into a pink wonderland. My antique furniture is pushed against walls, replaced by rented chairs. Family photos are gone, switched out for tasteful abstracts. Olivia holds court from my favorite armchair, her hand resting on her prominent belly. Ariel, finally joining us? The room falls quiet. Karen's here, not meeting my eyes. Ethan's sister, Emma, who's apparently now Olivia's best friend. Even my old book club members gathered around Olivia like moths to a flame. Daniel stands by the fireplace, examining the new artwork. He turns, and for a moment, I see recognition flash across his face. He remembers what used to hang there, our wedding portrait. Ladies, Olivia announces, would you excuse us? Family meeting. The guests file out, leaving whispers in their wake. Karen squeezes my hand as she passes, slipping something into my palm, a flash drive. I thought we should discuss the Seattle move, Olivia says once we're alone. As a family, there's nothing to discuss. I grip the flash drive. This is my home. Our home, Mark corrects automatically. Actually, Daniel steps forward. That's what I came to discuss. The deed is in my name. Was in your name, he says quietly. Check the records. It was transferred to Mark last month. The room tilts. That's impossible. I never signed. You did. Olivia's voice is gentle. Remember that insurance paperwork for the renovation permits? My legs give out. I sink onto the couch, remembering the stack of documents Mark brought home. I'd trusted him, signed without reading. It's for the best, Daniel says. You're not getting younger, Ariel. Seattle has excellent retirement communities. Get out. My voice shakes. Mom, all of you, get out of my house. It's not your house anymore. Olivia's mask slips just for a moment. And this isn't your family anymore either. The sooner you accept that. Accept what? That you've stolen everything again? Ariel, Daniel warns. I pull out my phone, opening the emails Ethan found. Should we discuss what everyone's been accepting? The orchestrated layoffs? The blocked promotions? The real estate listings from months ago? Mark stiffens. What's she talking about? She's confused. Olivia says quickly. Emotional. You know how she gets. Show him, I tell Daniel. Show him the truth or I will. Daniel's face hardens. You really want to do this? Now? With your grandchild at stake? The threat hangs there. My grandchild. My last connection to this family they're dismantling piece by piece. Mom? Mark sounds young suddenly, uncertain. What's going on? I look at my son, really look at him. See the boy who needed protection, who's become a man being manipulated by the people who should love him most. My finger hovers over the email forward button. One click and everything explodes. The truth about Daniel and Olivia's scheme. The carefully orchestrated destruction of my life. The betrayal that goes deeper than anyone suspects. But Mark's hand rests on Olivia's belly. His child, my grandchild, the next generation of this poisoned family tree. I delete the email draft. Nothing, I whisper. Nothing at all. Olivia's triumph glitters in her eyes as she turns to the others. Now, about the shower seating arrangements. I slip the flash drive into my pocket and head for the stairs. Behind me, they continue planning the celebration of new life in my stolen home, while I climb toward my shrinking sanctuary, tasting ashes and bourbon and defeat. The flash drive Karen gave me contains more than emails. There are photos, dozens of them. Olivia with Daniel dated long before their supposed affair began. Bank statements showing joint accounts opened years ago. And most damning, documentation of their plan to manipulate Mark's career, my layoff, everything. I'm studying these at Ethan's kitchen table when Olivia appears in his doorway. Breaking and entering now? I ask without looking up. Door was open. She waddles in, heavily pregnant. We need to talk. About how long you and Daniel were really together, or about how you orchestrated my son's entire life. Her hand moves protectively to her belly. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. I turn the laptop so she can see the photos. You've been playing us for years. She doesn't deny it. Instead, she sinks into a chair, suddenly looking very young. Daniel promised he'd handle you. Handle me? I laugh. Like he handled Mark's career, blocking promotions, arranging that Seattle job? To protect him, her voice hardens, from becoming like you, trapped in this town, in that museum of a house, living in the past. You mean protecting your investment? How much is my home worth to you, Olivia? Was it worth destroying my family? Your family? She leans forward. You lost your family the moment you chose that house over Daniel, over Mark. Everything I did was to free them from your obsession. The baby kicks visibly against her dress, my granddaughter, the next piece in their game. Does Mark know? I ask quietly. About you and Daniel? About any of it? Fear flickers across her face. You wouldn't. Try me. She stands abruptly. If you tell him, you'll lose him forever. Think carefully, Ariel. Who will he believe? His bitter mother or his wife and unborn child? The truth has evidence. The truth? She laughs. The truth is you're alone. No job, no husband, and soon no house. Even Karen's chosen my side. Face it, Ariel. You've lost. My phone buzzes. A text from Mark. Where are you? Dad's here with the real estate agent. That's my cue. Olivia moves toward the door. Coming, I follow her across our adjoining lawns. Through my living room window, I see Daniel with a woman in a business suit. Mark hovers nearby, looking uncertain. Last chance, Olivia murmurs. Accept the retirement community. Stay quiet. You can still be part of your granddaughter's life. I stop at my front steps. You know what your mistake was, Olivia? Enlighten me. Thinking I needed to be handled, I push past her into my house, where Daniel is mid-sentence with the agent. Just needs some modernizing, but the bones are... Get out. My voice carries years of stored rage. Mom, please. Mark starts. Show him, I tell Daniel. Show our son what you've been hiding, or I will. Daniel's face darkens. Ariel, think about what you're doing. I have. I turn to Mark. Your father and Olivia have been together for years. Before the affair, before the divorce, they've been manipulating your life, your career, everything. She's lying, Olivia says quickly. The pregnancy hormones. I pull out my phone, opening the files. Bank statements, photos, emails, everything. Mark takes the phone slowly. I watch his face as he scrolls. Confusion, disbelief, devastation. Mark, honey. Olivia reaches for him. He jerks away. How long? Son. Daniel steps forward. How long? The silence stretches. Finally, Olivia whispers, 5 years. Mark's hand shakes. Before college graduation? Before you helped me get my job? We wanted to help you, Daniel says, guide you toward a better life. By lying, manipulating, Mark's voice breaks. My whole life is a setup? The baby. Olivia touches her stomach. Is she even mine? The room freezes. Olivia's face goes white. And there it is, the question nobody wanted to ask, the final piece of their carefully constructed facade. Mark looks at his father, at his wife, at the life they built on lies. Then he hands me back my phone and walks out the front door. Mark, Olivia moves to follow. Let him go, I say quietly. For once in his life, let him choose his own path. The real estate agent slips out awkwardly. Daniel stares at the space where our son stood. Olivia sinks onto my couch, tears streaming. Sometimes revenge isn't about winning. It's about revealing the truth and letting the pieces fall where they may. I head upstairs to pack, leaving them with the wreckage of their perfect plan. Behind me, Olivia's sobs echo through my not quite lost home. The DNA test results sit unopened on my kitchen table while I make tea in my mother's old copper pot. Outside, the maple tree Mark tried to save still stands, its leaves turning gold in the October light. The front door opens. Mark's footsteps, then a pause at the kitchen threshold. You kept the pots, he says. Some things are worth keeping. I pour 2 cups. How's the new job? Different. He sits across from me, eyes on the envelope. Is that? I slide it toward him. Your choice. His hands shake slightly as he breaks the seal. I watch his face as he reads, remembering the day he first rode his bike under that maple tree, the day he graduated, the day he brought Olivia home. All those moments that seemed pure once, now tainted by manipulation. Well, he says finally, guess I'm not moving to Seattle after all. The test results flutter to the floor. Neither of us moves to pick them up. Have you heard from them? I ask. Dad's in Europe. Olivia's with her sister in Phoenix. He traces the rim of his teacup. The baby's due next month. Not his baby. Not my grandchild. Another lie in a house full of ghosts. I signed the house back over to you, he says. The lawyer has the paperwork. Mark, I never wanted it. That was their plan, not mine. He meets my eyes. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Through the window, I spot Ethan in his garden, pretending not to watch us. Karen's car drives by slowly, then continues down Willow Lane. The neighborhood holding its breath, waiting to see how our drama ends. I found something else, Mark continues. In Dad's office after everything, letters from Mom, your mother, to him before he left, warning him about Olivia. My hand's still on the teapot. What? She knew. Somehow she saw what Olivia was before any of us. Dad kept the letters, but he chose not to believe them. He pulls out an envelope, aged and creased. She wrote this one to me. Asked him to give it to me when I was old enough to understand. He never did. No, Mark unfolds the letter carefully. She wrote that sometimes the people who seem to want to free us are really just building different cages. That true freedom comes from choosing our own paths, even if they lead us back to where we started. My mother's words, reaching across time to protect what she couldn't save in life. I think of all the times I fought to keep this house, thinking I was protecting our legacy, when really I was protecting the truth she tried to tell. I'm going to travel for a while, Mark says, figure out who I am without their influence. The house will be here, I tell him, when you're ready. He stands, touching the copper pot gently. Keep these out. They look right here. After he leaves, I walk through my house again, noting the spaces where Olivia's modern touches have been stripped away, leaving behind the bones of what was always meant to be. In the living room, I rehang the family photos, including one of Mark as a baby, held by my mother. The doorbell rings. Ethan stands there with a garden trowel and a small rose bush. Thought you might want to restart your garden, he says. The old roses, the ones your mother planted. I take the plant, feeling its weight, its potential. Why did you help me? Really? He looks past me to the maple tree. Because 20 years ago, Daniel and Olivia did the same thing to my family. Different house, different story, same scheme. I wasn't strong enough to stop them then. And now? Now they'll think twice before trying again. He hands me the trowel. Sometimes the best revenge is making sure there are no more victims. I plant the rose under my mother's maple tree, where it will either grow or die on its own terms. Inside, the copper pots gleam in the afternoon light, ready for new memories, untainted by manipulation. The DNA results lie forgotten on the kitchen floor. Some truths matter more than biology. Some homes are built on foundations stronger than blood. I pick up my phone and delete the last photos of Olivia from my gallery. Let Phoenix keep her. My house remembers who it belongs to, and so do I.
The sound of breaking glass downstairs jolts me from my chemistry homework. Not the delicate tinkle of a dropped cup, but the violent crash of something being thrown. I know that sound too well lately. I want her gone by Friday. Frank's voice booms through the floorboards. I'm done playing nice about this. I'm 19, and I've learned to hold my breath during these conversations. My fingers curl around my pencil until my knuckles turn white, but I keep writing equations as if nothing's happening, as if my entire world isn't being dismantled, one argument at a time. She's my daughter, Mom says, her voice carrying that familiar tremor, the one that means she's already given up. We can't just throw her out. Your daughter. Frank spits the words like they're poison. Who's eating our food, taking up space, and bringing down the whole mood of this house? I've got a baby on the way, Sheila. A real family to think about. A real family. The words hit me like a physical blow. I've lived in this house since I was 4, long before Frank showed up with his perfect smile and empty promises. Now, at 7 months into Mom's pregnancy, he's finally showing his true colors. Linda said she'd take her, Mom offers weekly. Just until she finishes college. The pencil snaps in my grip. Aunt Linda's house. That woman runs her home like a military compound, complete with curfews and mandatory family dinners, where she lectures everyone about their life choices. Heavy footsteps thunder up the stairs. I barely have time to straighten up before my door flies open, banging against the wall. Frank fills the door frame, his face flushed red. Pack your bags, he says, not even looking at me directly. You're leaving Friday. This is my house too, I say, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. Grandmother left. Your grandmother left everything to your mother. Frank cuts me off. And your mother agrees with me, don't you, Sheila? Mom appears behind him, wringing her hands. Her eyes meet mine for a split second before darting away. It's just temporary, honey, until things settle down. Things? I stand up slowly. You mean until the baby comes? Until I'm completely erased from this family? Don't be dramatic. Frank scoffs. You're an adult now. Time to stand on your own 2 feet. I look around my room, at the photos on the walls, the books on the shelves, the entire life I've built here. And if I refuse, Frank steps closer, lowering his voice. Then I'll have you removed, legally, your choice. Mom makes a small sound of protest, but she doesn't move to stop him. She never does anymore. I'll need more than 2 days, I say, fighting to keep my voice level, to pack everything. Take what you need for now. The rest can wait. Frank's tone suggests the rest might disappear if I don't move fast enough. Linda's expecting you Friday evening. They leave without another word, closing the door behind them. I sink onto my bed, my hands shaking as I pull out my phone and text Tina. It's happening. They're kicking me out. Her response comes quickly. OMG, what? Want me to come over? I stare at the message, thinking about grandmother Margaret's last words to me before she died. Sometimes the best revenge is patience, dear. Watch, wait, and when the moment comes, strike true. I type back, no, I need to handle this myself. Standing up, I walk to my closet and pull out the small lockbox hidden behind my winter clothes. Inside is grandmother's letter, the one I haven't shown anyone yet, the one that changes everything. You want me gone, Frank? I whisper to myself, running my fingers over the sealed envelope. Be careful what you wish for. Friday isn't going to go the way they expect. Not at all. Aunt Linda's house smells like artificial lavender and disappointment. She stands in her pristine foyer, clipboard in hand, as if I'm checking into a prison rather than moving in with family. Rule number 1, she says, tapping her pen against the paper. Curfew is 9 o'clock sharp. No exceptions. I shift my duffel bag on my shoulder, the weight of grandmother's letter pressing against my hip through the hidden pocket. I have evening classes that end at 8:30. Then you'll need to run. Her lips twist into what might be a smile. Rule number 2, you'll participate in family dinner every evening at 6. That means being present and engaged, not hiding behind your phone. The clock on her wall ticks loudly in the silence as she continues down her list. Each rule feels like another bar in a cage. No visitors without prior approval, mandatory church attendance, weekly progress reports on my life goals. And of course, she adds, you'll contribute to household expenses. $300 monthly should cover it. My fingers curl into fists. Mom said, your mother isn't here. Linda's voice carries an edge sharp enough to cut. And frankly, given her poor judgment lately, I wouldn't put much stock in her promises. She leads me upstairs to what she calls my temporary accommodation. A narrow room that looks more like a closet with a window. The walls are bare, except for a cross above the single bed, and the desk barely has space for my laptop. Dinner's in 30 minutes, she announces. I expect you cleaned up and properly dressed. No jeans at the table. After she leaves, I pull out my phone to text Tina, but there's no signal. Of course, I move to the window and finally get one bar. In hell, send help. The response comes quickly. That bad? Before I can reply, Linda's voice carries up the stairs. Ariel, phone away and come help set the table. I stuff my phone in my pocket and head downstairs, where Linda's arranging plates with military precision. She hands me a stack of napkins without looking up. Your mother called while you were unpacking, she says casually. They're converting your old room into the nursery. Frank asked if you wanted any of your remaining things or if they should donate them. The napkins crumple in my grip. They can, and they are. She straightens a fork that was already perfectly aligned. It's time to accept your new reality, Ariel. This attitude of yours won't serve you here. I force myself to smooth out the napkins, placing them beside each plate while my mind races. They're erasing me, piece by piece, thinking I'll just accept it, like Mom accepts everything Frank does. Linda's husband, George, arrives home just before 6, barely acknowledging my presence, before taking his seat at the head of the table. Linda serves some kind of casserole that tastes like cardboard and expectations. So, George says between bites, Linda tells me you're studying chemistry? Yes, waste of time, he interrupts. Should be learning something practical, business maybe, or nursing, if you insist on science. Linda nods approvingly. I've been saying that. All those student loans, for what? To mix chemicals in a lab? Actually, I say, keeping my voice steady, Grandmother Margaret left money for my education, no loans needed. The silence that follows is deafening. Linda's fork scrapes against her plate with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. That's not possible, she says finally. Mother's estate was quite clear, was it? I meet her gaze across the table. Because grandmother told me lots of interesting things before she died. About the estate, about the family, about you. Linda's face pales slightly, but she recovers quickly. Well, clearly she was confused near the end. Now about your contribution to the household. I think I'll wait to discuss that until I've had a chance to review grandmother's paperwork, I say, watching her reaction carefully. All of it. She sets down her fork with a sharp click. Go to your room. We'll discuss your attitude in the morning. I stand, gathering my plate. Good night, Aunt Linda, Uncle George. Thank you for dinner. In my room, I finally pull out grandmother's letter, running my fingers over the seal. Not yet, I think. The timing isn't right, but soon, very soon. My phone buzzes. Another text from Tina. Need an escape plan? I smile as I type back, no, need a revenge plan. And I think I just found my first weakness to exploit. After 2 weeks of Linda's suffocating rules, I finally break the seal on grandmother's letter. My hands tremble as I read it in the pre-dawn darkness, using my phone's flashlight under the covers like a child with a forbidden book. The truth hits like a physical blow. Legal documents fall from the envelope. Adoption papers, property deeds, bank statements, my name over and over, not just as a beneficiary, but as Margaret's legally adopted daughter. A knock startles me. I shove everything under my pillow as Linda opens the door without waiting for a response. Why is your light on at 5 a.m.? She flicks on the overhead light. You're burning electricity I'm paying for. Actually, I say, heart pounding against my ribs, I think you'll find you're not paying for anything in this house. Her eyes narrow. Excuse me? Grandmother Margaret's name is still on all the utilities. And the mortgage. Isn't that strange? Linda's face does something complicated, like she's swallowing glass. You've been snooping. I've been investigating my inheritance. I pull out one of the documents. Did you know she adopted me? Legally. 3 years ago. The color drains from her face. That's impossible. She wouldn't. But she did. I stand up, finding strength in her uncertainty. And according to these papers, this house belongs to me. Linda snatches the document from my hand, scanning it frantically. These could be forged. You think you can just... Morning. A male voice calls from outside. Through the window, I see David, the next-door neighbor, collecting his newspaper. Linda freezes. David's a real estate lawyer, isn't he? I ask innocently. Maybe we should ask his opinion. This is ridiculous, Linda hisses, but her hands are shaking. You're just a child playing games. No, I'm Margaret's legally adopted daughter, and I have questions, like why you've been collecting rent from 3 tenants in grandmother's properties while telling Mom the buildings were empty. She takes a step back. How did you? I have her files, all of them, including the recordings. This is a bluff. I don't have recordings. But Linda's reaction tells me they exist somewhere. Her face goes from white to gray. What do you want? She whispers. First, breakfast. I'm thinking waffles. Then we'll discuss your new tenant, me, and my terms for keeping certain information private. You wouldn't dare expose. Try me. I meet her gaze steadily. Grandmother taught me a lot about patience and revenge. The sound of a car door makes us both turn. Through the window, I see Mom getting out of her SUV, one hand on her pregnant belly. Perfect timing, I say. Should we share the news about my adoption over breakfast? Linda grabs my arm, her nails digging in. Wait, just wait. We can discuss this privately, like you discussed things privately with Frank. convincing him that kicking me out was the only option. Her grip loosens in surprise. How did you? I know everything, Aunt Linda. Every scheme, every manipulation, every lie. Another bluff. But her reaction confirms I'm hitting close to home. The question is, what are you willing to do to keep it all quiet? The doorbell rings. Linda looks like she might be sick. Better answer that, I say softly. And remember, I learned from the best about keeping secrets. Grandmother made sure of that. She backs away, clutching the adoption papers. This isn't over. No, I agree, watching her hurry downstairs. It's just beginning. I hear Mom's voice floating up from below, asking if I'm awake yet. Linda's response is too quiet to make out, but I can imagine her scrambling to maintain control. My phone buzzes. A text from Tina. Did you open it? I type back, yes, and it's better than we thought. Way better. The sound of Linda's forced cheerfulness drifts up the stairs as she invites Mom in for coffee. I smile, thinking of Grandmother's words in the letter. Power isn't about having control, dear. It's about making others believe you do. Time to show them exactly how well I learned that lesson. David catches me at the mailbox, his lawyer's briefcase swinging casually at his side. Interesting morning at the Thompson house, he says, nodding toward Linda's, my property. Saw your mom leaving in quite a state. I sort through the mail, keeping my voice neutral. Family drama. Must be. Linda's been making calls all day, mostly to her bank, from what I could hear through the fence. He pauses, studying me. You know, I handled some of your grandmother Margaret's estate work. My fingers freeze on an envelope. Did you? Smart woman, Margaret, always 10 steps ahead. He pulls out a business card, writes something on the back. If you need those adoption papers reviewed, my office hours are listed here. The other number's my cell. I take the card, turning it over. There's a time written on the back, 3 p.m. Thanks, I say, understanding the invitation. I might take you up on that. Inside, Linda's pacing the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. No, I need those records today. Yes, I understand it's irregular, but she spots me and ends the call abruptly. Going somewhere? She asks, eyeing my jacket. Class, I hold up David's card. And then a legal consultation. She sets the phone down with exaggerated care. You really want to do this? Air all our dirty laundry. You mean your dirty laundry? I lean against the door frame. Like what really happened to grandmother's jewelry collection? The one you told Mom was stolen. Her face tightens. You're playing a dangerous game. No, I'm ending one. Your game. I check my phone. Mom's probably wondering about our interesting breakfast conversation. Should I fill her in on what we discussed? Wait, Linda moves to block my path. What do you want? Money? The house? Name it. I study her desperate expression, remembering all the times she lorded her power over others. Over Mom, over me. I want everything, I say softly. Everything you took, everything you lied about, everything you thought you could get away with. You ungrateful little... Careful, I cut her off. Remember who owns these walls now. The front door opens. George, returning early from work. Linda's eyes widen in panic. Don't, she whispers. He doesn't know about the properties, about the money I've been keeping from him, I finish. Imagine that, secrets in a marriage. George appears in the kitchen doorway, frowning at the tension. Everything okay here? Perfect, I say brightly. Aunt Linda and I were just discussing inheritance law. Did you know? Nothing important, Linda interrupts. Ariel was leaving for class, weren't you? I shoulder my bag, enjoying her discomfort. We'll continue this later. Oh, and I invited Mom over for dinner. Hope that's okay, since it is my house now. I leave them in the kitchen, Linda's frantic explanation fading behind me. Outside, I check the time. 2 hours until my meeting with David. Just enough time to visit the bank, where grandmother kept her safe deposit box. The key was hidden in the adoption papers, along with a note. For when the truth becomes your weapon. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom. Linda called. Said you're making strange claims. We need to talk. Another from Frank. Stop causing trouble, or there will be consequences. And finally, one from Tina. Holy shit, they're freaking out. What did you do? I smile, pocketing my phone. Without responding, let them stew in their uncertainty. Let them wonder what else I know, what evidence I have. Grandmother's voice echoes in my memory. Patience, dear one. The best revenge isn't swift or violent. It's watching them destroy themselves with their own fears. I head toward the bank, my steps light with purpose. Linda's desperate face, Frank's threats, Mom's confusion, all pieces falling into place. But David's involvement adds a wild card I hadn't expected. What else did Grandmother tell him? What other surprises wait in that safe deposit box? The weight of the key in my pocket feels like possibility, like power, like justice, or maybe just revenge. Right now, I'm not sure I care which. The safe deposit box contains exactly 3 items: a USB drive, a small leather journal, and a silver locket I remember from Grandmother's neck. My hands shake as I plug the drive into my laptop in David's office. Your grandmother mentioned you might come looking for this, David says, closing his office door. She was very specific about the timing. Files populate my screen, hundreds of them. Financial records, property deeds, photographs, years of Linda's careful manipulation, documented in meticulous detail. She knew, I whisper. All this time she knew what Linda was doing. Margaret knew everything. David leans against his desk, including what Frank and Linda were planning for you. A video file catches my eye. Linda and Frank in what looks like a coffee shop, dated 3 months before Grandmother's death. I click play, and their voices fill the room. Once Margaret's gone, we move the girl out. Frank says, Linda gets the properties, I get the house, everyone wins. Except Ariel, Linda replies, laughing. The image blurs as tears fill my eyes. They planned this before she died. My phone buzzes, Mom calling again. I silence it, but not before seeing her text. Frank's furious, says you're making threats. Please stop this. Your grandmother left you a choice, David says quietly. Read the journal. The leather book feels heavy in my hands. Inside, Grandmother's elegant script fills the pages. I flip to the last entry, dated a week before she died. My dearest Ariel, by now you know the truth. You have 2 paths before you, justice or vengeance. Choose carefully. One will heal you, the other will hollow you. The evidence is yours to use as you see fit. But remember, some victories cost more than defeats. A knock interrupts my reading. Through David's office window, I see Linda standing in the reception area, looking desperate. I didn't expect her to crack this quickly, David muses. She hasn't. I slip the journal into my bag. She's here to threaten, not surrender. Linda bursts in without waiting for permission. Whatever she's told you, she says. To David, there's more to the story. Like the missing insurance money? I ask. Or the forged documents for Grandmother's properties. You don't understand what you're doing. Linda's voice shakes. Frank has connections. He can make things very difficult. Are you threatening my client? David straightens. Suddenly, every inch the lawyer. I'm trying to protect her. Linda's composure cracks. Frank's not who you think. He's dangerous when he's crossed. A chill runs down my spine. What do you mean, dangerous? Ask your mother about the accident. Linda's eyes dart between us. The one that really killed your father. The room seems to tilt. My father died of a heart attack. Is that what Sheila told you? Linda laughs bitterly. God, you're as naive as she was. Frank had debts. Your father knew too much. You're lying. But my voice sounds hollow. Check the USB, Linda says. Margaret had proof. Why do you think she adopted you? She was trying to protect you from him. My phone buzzes again. Tina this time. Your mom just showed up at my place looking for you. She's crying. Time's up, Linda, David says firmly. I suggest you leave before I call security. She backs toward the door. Just be careful, Ariel. Some secrets are buried for a reason. After she leaves, I sit heavily in David's guest chair. Could she be telling the truth? About Frank? David hands me a file from his desk. Your grandmother thought so. That's why she left you this. Inside is a police report I've never seen before. My father's name, Frank's, a suspicious accident that was never fully investigated. My revenge against Linda suddenly seems small, petty even. What if I've been focusing on the wrong enemy all along? What do? I whisper. David's expression is grave. That depends. Do you want justice or vengeance? I touch the locket in my pocket, remembering grandmother's words about choices and costs. The weight of her legacy, both the truth she uncovered and the weapons she left me, settles heavily on my shoulders. My phone lights up with another text from Mom. Please come home. We need to talk about your father. Sometimes I realize revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about exposing the truth, no matter who gets burned in the process, even if that someone is you. I find Mom waiting in Tina's apartment, her face streaked with tears. The police report burns in my bag like a live coal. Did you know? The words come out before I can stop them. About Dad's accident? She flinches as if I'd struck her. Who told you? Does it matter? Did you know Frank was involved? It's not that simple. Her hands flutter to her pregnant belly, protective. You don't understand what it was like back then. Then explain it to me. I remain standing while she sits, needing the height, the distance. Explain how you married the man he protected us. Her outburst echoes in the small room. Your father's gambling debts. There were dangerous people involved. Frank made it all go away. By making Dad go away. I didn't know. Her voice cracks. Not until after. Frank said it was an accident, that he tried to help. A key turns in the lock, Tina returning. But the door opens to reveal Frank instead, his bulk filling the door frame. My heart stutters. How did you get in? I back away instinctively. He holds up a key. Your friend should be more careful about where she leaves her spare. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. We need to talk about these accusations you're throwing around. Frank, please, Mom starts, but he cuts her off with a look. I've been patient, he says, closing the door behind him. Tolerant. But you're becoming a problem, Ariel, just like your father was. Is that a threat? I reach for my phone, but it's not in my pocket. I'd left it charging in Tina's room. It's a fact. He moves further into the room. You think you've got it all figured out, with your grandmother's evidence and Linda's confession. But you're missing the bigger picture. The picture where you killed my father? His laugh is cold. Your father killed himself. I just helped things along, like I'm going to help you understand your place in this family. Frank, Mom struggles to stand. You promised. I promised to protect our family. He snaps. That's what I'm doing. Your daughter's threatening everything we've built. By exposing the truth. Truth? He pulls something from his jacket, a familiar leather journal. My blood runs cold. You mean like the truth in here, about how your precious grandmother was embezzling from her own company, how she manipulated everyone around her? You're lying. Am I? He tosses the journal onto the coffee table. Check the last pages, the ones she didn't want you to see. My hands shake as I pick it up. There, in grandmother's handwriting, are details of financial transactions, hidden accounts, manipulated records. She wasn't protecting you, Frank says softly. She was protecting herself, using you as a pawn, just like I used Linda, just like everyone uses everyone else. No. But the evidence is there in black and white. You want revenge? He spreads his arms. Go ahead, expose everything. But remember, the truth burns everyone it touches, including you, including your mother, including your grandmother's precious legacy. Mom's crying quietly now, one hand pressed to her mouth. The weight of it all, the lies, the manipulations, the generations of betrayal, crashes down on me. What do you want? My voice sounds hollow, defeated. Sign over the properties, all of them. Walk away from this vendetta before it destroys what's left of your family. He pulls out papers from his jacket. Your mother needs peace. Your sibling deserves a fresh start. The papers blur before my eyes. Everything I thought I knew, everyone I thought I could trust, all of it built on lies. Don't, Mom whispers. Please, Ariel, don't. Quiet, Frank commands, and she falls silent, just like always. I stare at the papers, at Frank's expectant smile, at Mom's tears. Grandmother's last words echo in my mind. Some victories cost more than defeats. But what about the cost of surrender? My phone chirps distantly from Tina's room. Probably David wondering why I missed our follow-up meeting. David, who has copies of everything. David, who knows things even Frank doesn't know yet. I need time, I say, hating how weak my voice sounds. To think. Frank's smile widens. You have until tomorrow. Choose wisely. He leads Mom out, leaving me alone with the journal, the papers, and the crushing weight of understanding that sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those we trusted most. But maybe, just maybe, that's also true for salvation. The USB drive feels heavy in my pocket as I walk into the family meeting Frank arranged. Everyone's gathered in Grandmother's old study. Mom, Frank, Linda, even George. David waits outside with copies of everything, ready to act if I don't check in within an hour. Have you made your decision? Frank asks, gesturing to the paper on the desk. I pick up the pen, turning it slowly. Actually, I have some documents of my own to share first. Linda shifts nervously in her chair. Ariel, think carefully about... Oh, I have. I connect the USB drive to Grandmother's old computer, still sitting in its place of honor. Did you know she never turned this off? Just left it running, recording everything. Frank's smile falters. What are you talking about? The screen flickers to life, showing security footage of this very room. Dated 3 days before Grandmother died. I found something interesting, I say, pressing play. Watch. On screen, Frank and Linda stand arguing with Grandmother. The audio is crystal clear. You can't prove anything, Frank says. I can prove everything, Grandmother replies. The money laundering, the accident, all of it. Did you really think I wouldn't protect my granddaughter? Present-day Frank lunges for the computer, but I'm faster, backing away with the remote. Keep watching. It gets better. Linda's voice emerges from the speakers. We had a deal, Margaret. I keep quiet about Frank's involvement in the accident. And you... Enough, Frank shouts, but Mom raises her hand. Let it play, she says quietly. I need to hear this. The footage continues, revealing layer after layer of manipulation. Frank's schemes, Linda's complicity, the truth about my father's death. Mom's hands cover her mouth, tears streaming down her face. You're not the only one who can gather evidence, I tell Frank. Grandmother taught me well. Evidence of what? He tries to sound confident, but his eyes keep darting to the screen. Some edited footage? Proves nothing. Maybe not alone. I pull out my phone, showing the email I'd queued up. But combined with these financial records David helped me uncover, the police might be interested. You wouldn't dare, Linda stands, panic in her eyes. Think about your mother, your sibling. I am thinking about them. I look at Mom. That's why I already sent everything to the district attorney. 10 minutes ago. The room erupts in chaos. Frank lunges for me again, but George surprisingly steps in his way. Don't, George says. It's over. Linda collapses into her chair. How long have you known about you embezzling from our joint accounts? George's voice is ice. Long enough. I was just waiting to see who would expose you first. Mom stands slowly, one hand on her belly. All this time, you both knew how my husband really died. Sheila, Frank starts, but she cuts him off. Don't. She turns to me. The recordings. Are there more? I nod. Grandmother kept everything. She knew someday we'd need the truth. Frank's phone buzzes, a text message that drains the remaining color from his face. They're here. Through the window, we can see police cars pulling up to the house. You know what the funny thing is, I say, watching Frank's world crumble. I was ready to sign those papers this morning, to give up everything just to keep the peace. Then why didn't you? Linda asks quietly. Because I found one last recording, from the day before Grandmother died. I press play one final time. Grandmother's voice fills the room. Remember, Ariel, revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about protecting those who remain. Choose truth over peace, justice over vengeance. That's my real legacy to you. The sound of footsteps on the stairs grows louder. Frank looks desperately for an escape route, but there isn't one. Goodbye, Frank, Mom says softly. I should have chosen truth a long time ago. The door opens, and justice, delayed but not denied, finally arrives. I watch them lead Frank and Linda away, feeling not triumph, but a heavy sort of peace. Grandmother was right. The truth burns everyone it touches. But sometimes, that's exactly what's needed to forge something new from the ashes. The house feels different as I pack up grandmother's study. Each object holds a memory now. The computer that revealed the truth, the desk where Frank signed his confession, the chair where Mom finally broke her silence about Dad's death. David helps me sort through the last of the papers. The DA says Frank's plea deal includes full restitution. Money can't fix everything. I place grandmother's silver locket in a special box, the one thing I'm keeping. Mom's not speaking to me. She will, he says, but we both know it might take years. The truth about Dad broke something in her that even time might not heal. The doorbell rings. Linda's daughter Emma, here to collect her mother's remaining belongings before the house sells. I find her in the foyer, looking small and lost. I'm sorry, I say, meaning it. About everything. She nods stiffly. Mom told me. She told me why Grandmother Margaret did it. Why she set all this up. Did what? Emma pulls out a familiar leather journal. Not the one Frank had, but another, older one. She knew about the affair between Mom and Frank years ago, before he married your mother. The world tilts slightly. What? They were planning something together. Back then, something about the company, but Grandmother caught them, and Emma's voice breaks. She gave them a choice, stop, or she'd make sure they destroyed each other eventually. I think about all the evidence Grandmother gathered, the way she positioned everyone like pieces on a chessboard. She planned this, all of it. She knew they wouldn't stop, so she made sure when they finally fell, they'd fall together. Emma hands me the journal. Mom wanted you to have this. She said maybe now you'll understand why some victories feel hollow. I opened the journal to find a letter addressed to me in Grandmother's handwriting. My dearest Ariel, if you're reading this, you've chosen justice over vengeance. But justice has its own price. The truth you fought so hard to expose was orchestrated long ago by hands just as stained as those you sought to punish, including mine. The front door opens again. Tina, bringing boxes for the last of the packing. She stops when she sees my face. You okay? She asks. I close the journal, feeling the weight of Grandmother's final lesson. I thought I was fighting for the truth, but I was just the last move in someone else's game. Does it matter? David asks quietly. The truth still needed telling. Maybe he's right. Maybe the motivation behind justice matters less than justice itself. But as I help Emma carry her mother's things to her car, I can't help but wonder about the cost of righteousness, about the fine line between vengeance and vindication. Later, in what used to be my bedroom, I find one last surprise, a key taped behind a loose baseboard, with a note in Mom's handwriting. For when you're ready to come home, some things are stronger than truth. I add it to the chain holding Grandmother's locket, understanding finally what she meant in her last recording. Revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about protecting those who remain. But sometimes, in protecting them, we hurt them in ways we never intended. The house sells the next day. I use the money exactly as Grandmother specified. Half to a trust for Mom's new baby, my sister-to-be, and half to a scholarship fund in Dad's name. Not for revenge or justice, but for healing. As I lock up for the last time, I see Mom across the street, watching. She doesn't wave or come over, but she doesn't turn away either. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe it's a start. I touch the key on my chain, feeling its potential. Some doors close forever, but others just wait for the right moment to open again. Ready, Tina asks from the car. I look at the house one last time, seeing not the battlefield it became, but the home it used to be, the home it might be again, someday, for someone else. Yeah, I say, turning away. I'm ready. The truth may have burned everyone it touched, but from those ashes, something new can grow, something stronger than revenge, more lasting than justice, something like hope.
The sound of my father's raised voice stopped me cold outside his office door. In all my 19 years, I'd never heard him yell like that. Not even when I totaled his car last summer. You had no right, Veronica. No right at all. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. The scholarship letter in my back pocket suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'm protecting this family, Veronica shot back, her voice dripping with that fake concern she'd perfected over the years. Have you seen the cost of that program? It'll bankrupt us, Michael. And for what? So she can run off to chase some ridiculous dream. I'm Hazel, and this was the moment I realized my stepmother had been sabotaging my life for years. She earned that scholarship on her own merit, Dad said, his voice cracking. And you went behind our backs to try and get it revoked? Merit! Veronica laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Please, we both know she only got it because of that sob story about her dead mother. My fingers curled into fists. The acceptance letter crinkled. Don't you dare, Dad warned. Don't you dare bring Sarah into this. Why not? Everyone else does. Poor little Hazel lost her mother so young. It's all I ever hear about. But who's been here? Who's been raising her? Me. And this is how she repays me? By running off to that fancy art school across the country? I bit my lip until I tasted blood. 6 years of forced smiles, of yes, Veronica, and whatever you think is best, Veronica. 6 years of watching her slowly isolate my father, turn him against my dreams, piece by piece. The scholarship stays, Dad said firmly. And if I find out you've tried to interfere again, you'll what? Veronica's voice turned deadly quiet. Leave me. Go ahead. But remember who helped you rebuild your business after the recession. Remember whose connections saved this family from bankruptcy. You really want to throw all that away for her art school fantasy? The silence that followed felt like a knife in my chest. That's what I thought, Veronica continued. Now I have a lovely dinner planned. We'll discuss this like a proper family. I'm sure Hazel will understand once we explain the financial reality. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. Did you tell them about the scholarship yet? I typed back with shaking fingers. No. But V found out somehow. It's bad. Want me to come over? Before I could reply, footsteps approached the door. I scrambled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. Veronica emerged, perfectly composed as always. Her eyes widened in fake surprise. Hazel, darling, how long have you been home? Her smile never reached her eyes. It never did. Just got here, I lied, matching her fake warmth with my own. Is everything okay? I thought I heard voices. Oh, your father and I were just discussing your future. She reached out to touch my cheek. I forced myself not to flinch. Why don't you join us for dinner? We have so much to talk about. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of my father through the doorway. He sat at his desk, head in his hands, defeated. In that moment, something inside me hardened. 6 years of playing nice, of trying to keep the peace, of watching this woman slowly poison everything I loved. Actually, I said, stepping back from her reach, I have plans with Evelyn. School project, can't miss it. Family comes first, dear. Her fingers twitched just slightly. Cancel your plans. I met her gaze steadily. No, I said. I don't think I will. Something dark flashed across her face, just for a second, but I saw it. And I knew then that the war she'd been waging in secret was about to become very, very public. I turned and walked away, my mind already racing with plans. If Veronica wanted to play games, fine. But she was about to learn that some people play to win. Evelyn's basement had always been our sanctuary, but tonight, it felt like a war room. I paced between the worn leather couch and the pool table, replaying the afternoon's confrontation while she watched me with growing concern. She actually tried to get your scholarship revoked. Evelyn's voice cracked with disbelief. That's next-level psycho, even for Veronica. I stopped pacing, fishing the crumpled acceptance letter from my pocket. Dad's signature is forged on this withdrawal request. Look at the date. 3 days ago. She must have gone through my room while I was at work. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air like smoke. Through the basement window, I caught glimpses of people walking past. Normal families heading home for normal dinners without wondering if their stepmother was plotting their downfall. Remember when she first moved in? I sank onto the couch. How she used to bring me those little art supplies. Watercolours, sketch pads, fancy pencils. Yeah, you were what? 13? 12. My laugh came out bitter. God, I actually thought she cared about my art. Turns out she was just marking her territory, making sure Dad saw her playing mommy. My phone buzzed. Dad again. 4th missed call. You should talk to him, Evelyn said softly. And say what? Hey, Dad. Sorry your wife's a manipulative snake who's been sabotaging me since middle school. Maybe he needs to hear exactly that. Before I could respond, footsteps thundered down the basement stairs. Derek burst in, still wearing his work uniform from the garage. You okay? Got your text? He crossed to the couch, pulling me close. The familiar smell of motor oil and cologne steadied my nerves. I'm fine, just family drama. Bullshit. He pulled back, studying my face. You're shaking. Evelyn tossed him the forged withdrawal letter. His expression darkened as he read. This is illegal, he said finally. We should report her. To who? The evil stepmother police. The actual police. This is fraud. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from Veronica. Your father is very disappointed in your behaviour. Come home so we can discuss this as a family. I showed them the message. Evelyn swore under her breath. Classic manipulation, she said, making it sound like your dad's the one who's upset when she's the one pulling strings. You can stay at my place, Derek offered. My roommate's gone for the week. The offer was tempting, but running would only prove Veronica right, that I was too immature, too unstable for the scholarship program. My phone chimed again. This time it was Sophie, Veronica's best friend. Hey, sweetie, heard about the scholarship situation. Let's grab coffee tomorrow, just us girls. That's weird, Evelyn said, reading over my shoulder. Since when does Sophie reach out to you directly? Since never. I forwarded the text to them both. Think Veronica put her up to it? Obviously, Derek scoffed. But maybe we can use that. Evelyn sat up straighter. What do you mean? Sophie knows all Veronica's secrets, right? And lately, I've noticed tension between them at the country club. I turned to face him. What kind of tension? The kind where Sophie drinks too much at ladies' brunch and starts venting about feeling used. Trust me, there's bad blood there. A plan started forming in my mind. So if someone were to encourage that tension... Exactly. Derek squeezed my hand. Fight fire with fire. It's risky, Evelyn warned. If Veronica figures out you're turning her friends against her, what's she gonna do? I stood up, suddenly energized. Try to ruin my life? Too late. My phone buzzed one final time. Dad, please come home, kiddo, we need to talk. I stared at the message, remembering his defeated posture in the office. How long had Veronica been manipulating him? How many other times had she sabotaged things behind our backs? I'm going home, I announced, but not to make peace. Want backup? Derek asked. I shook my head. I need to handle this part alone, but tomorrow. I looked at my friends, feeling a surge of gratitude for their loyalty. Tomorrow we start planning. Planning what? Evelyn asked. I thought about all the little cruelties, all the subtle manipulations over the years. How Veronica had slowly poisoned everything good in our family while maintaining her perfect stepmother facade. Planning how to make her mask slip, I said, in front of everyone. Sophie's coffee shop suggestion turned out to be the most expensive place in town. Of course it was. I watched her stir her third sugar packet into her latte, wondering how many of Veronica's secrets that perfectly glossed smile was hiding. I've known your stepmother for 15 years, Sophie said, tapping her spoon against the rim. She means well, even if her methods are unconventional. Unconventional? The word tasted like acid. Is that what we're calling fraud now? Sophie's smile flickered. The scholarship withdrawal was extreme, I'll admit. But she's just trying to protect you from what? Success? Independence? A group of women at the next table glanced over. Sophie lowered her voice. From making the same mistakes she did. Did you know she went to art school too? That stopped me cold. What? Before she met your father? She was quite talented. Sophie's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her cup. Then her first husband died, leaving her with nothing but student debt and unfinished paintings. My phone buzzed. Derek found something interesting in V's old social media. Call me. What happened to her art? I asked, buying time. Life happened. Bills. Reality. Sophie leaned forward. She doesn't want you struggling like she did. So instead of warning me, she forges documents and tries to sabotage my future. You don't understand how much she... You're right. I cut her off. I don't understand. Just like I don't understand why you're really here. Something shifted in Sophie's expression, a crack in her polished veneer. What do you mean? Veronica sent you to do damage control, but you're not telling me everything. She sat back, studying me with new interest. You're sharper than she gives you credit for, and you're not as loyal as she thinks you are. The words hung between us like smoke. Sophie's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her purse. Be careful, Hazel, she said quietly. Veronica doesn't handle betrayal well. Ask her sister. She doesn't have a sister. Sophie stood, dropping cash on the table. Exactly. My phone buzzed again as she walked away. This time it was Evelyn. Emergency. V's at the school board meeting right now. Ice shot through my veins. The scholarship committee meeting, the one where they finalized fall admissions. I ran out of the coffee shop, dialing Derek. He answered on the first ring. Found her old wedding announcement, he said without preamble. Before your dad. Get this, her first husband didn't die. He left her after she... Tell me later. I cut him off, already sprinting toward my car. She's at the school board. We need everything you found, now. On it. Meet you there. The drive to the administration building was a blur. I found Evelyn pacing outside, clutching a manila folder. She's telling them you cheated on your portfolio submission, she said, shoving the folder at me. But I got copies of all your original work submissions from Mrs. Chen. Every dated draft, every progress photo. My hands shook as I flipped through the evidence. 6 years of work. 6 years of dreams she was trying to destroy. How long has she been in there? 20 minutes. They're in the main conference room. I started toward the door, but Evelyn caught my arm. Wait, she said. There's more. Sophie called me right after you met. Said to check Veronica's history with the Sterling Art Institute. That's where she went to school. Where she taught. Until she was fired for selling student work as her own. The pieces clicked together like a terrible puzzle. Her obsession with my art supplies. The way she'd hover when I worked. All those suggestions about signing my pieces differently. She wasn't preparing to be a supportive stepmother, I whispered. She was marking her territory, making sure everyone knew she was the real artist in the family. Hazel. Evelyn's voice was urgent. If she convinces them you cheated. She won't. I pushed through the building's doors, clutching my evidence folder like a shield. Behind me, I heard Derek's car screech into the parking lot. Ahead, voices drifted from the conference room, including Veronica's, smooth as honey, and twice as toxic. I hate to bring this to your attention, but as someone who deeply values artistic integrity, I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. Time to show her what real artistic integrity looked like. Ready? Evelyn whispered beside me. I thought of Sophie's warning about betrayal, about Veronica's mysterious sister, about all the lives she'd poisoned before mine. Ready, I said, and pushed open the conference room door. The Sterling Art Institute's records arrived in a plain manila envelope, but the contents hit like a bomb. I spread the documents across Derek's kitchen table while Evelyn paced behind me. Terminated for ethical violations, I read aloud. Multiple incidents of unauthorized use of student work. Keep reading, Derek said, pointing to the next paragraph. Following investigation, Professor Veronica Mitchell agreed to resign quietly in exchange for... My voice caught. In exchange for destroying all evidence of student complaints. Evelyn stopped pacing. She didn't just steal their work, she erased their voices. My phone lit up with Dad's message. Coming home tonight. We need to talk about what happened at the school board. The school board meeting had been a disaster. Not because I'd failed to defend myself, but because Veronica had turned it into exactly what she wanted. A public spectacle of concern for her troubled stepdaughter. I should have seen it coming, I said, shuffling through more documents. The way she cried in front of the committee, talking about how worried she was about my unstable behavior and concerning patterns. She's good, Derek admitted. Making herself look like the victim while destroying you? That's next-level manipulation. Another document caught my eye. A newspaper clipping from 15 years ago. Local artist wins regional prize. The photo showed a younger Veronica beside a hauntingly familiar painting. That's your style, Evelyn whispered. The way you layer colours, the composition. No, I corrected her, hands shaking. That's my mother's style. The room went silent. I pulled up a photo on my phone, one of my mum's last paintings before she died. The similarities were undeniable. She didn't just want to stop me from going to art school, I said slowly. She wanted to erase every trace of my mother's influence. That's why she pushed me toward different techniques all these years. Derek's phone buzzed. Sophie wants to meet, says she has something we need to see. It's a trap, Evelyn warned. Maybe, I said, still staring at the painting. But we need more proof. You have proof, Evelyn gestured at the documents. Take this to your dad. Show him what she really is. I thought about Dad's message, about the way he looked at Veronica even now like she was his salvation after Mom died. The truth would destroy him. There's something else, Derek said quietly. Something Sophie mentioned about Veronica's sister. The one who supposedly doesn't exist. He pulled up an old social media post. Meet Christina Mitchell, Veronica's younger sister, also an artist. The photo showed two women, arms linked, smiling at a gallery opening. The caption read, "Sisters sharing their passion for art." What happened to her? Evelyn asked. That's the thing, Derek scrolled through more posts. She just disappears. No death notice, no explanation. Just gone, right after Veronica started teaching at Sterling. My phone buzzed again. Veronica this time. Your father's very disappointed. But we can fix this if you're willing to be honest about your issues. The pieces clicked together like a terrible puzzle. Christina's disappearance, the stolen artwork, the systematic destruction of anyone who threatened Veronica's artistic identity. She's not going to stop, I realized. The school board was just the beginning. She'll keep going until she's destroyed everything I am. So what do we do? Evelyn asked. I looked at the documents spread across the table, at my mother's artistic legacy that Veronica had tried to erase, at the evidence of lives she'd ruined before mine. We find Christina, I said, and we make Veronica face every person she's ever silenced. That's dangerous, Derek warned. If she did something to her own sister, then I need to know what I'm really dealing with. I started gathering the documents, because this isn't just about my future anymore. It's about making sure she never does this to anyone else. My phone lit up one last time. Sophie, meeting tonight. Come alone. There's something you need to know about Christina. I showed them the message. Don't go, they said in unison. But we all knew I would. Because sometimes the only way to fight a monster is to walk straight into their lair. I just hoped I was ready for whatever truth waited there. Sophie's hands trembled as she slid the envelope across the diner table. Outside, rain pelted the windows, turning the parking lot lights into blurry halos. The late-night crowd had thinned to a few truckers and an elderly couple sharing pie. Christina's alive, Sophie said quietly, but Veronica made sure she'll never paint again. I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. What did she do? It's not what she did. It's what she threatened to do. Sophie glanced over her shoulder. Christina had evidence, proof that Veronica had been stealing student work for years, but she also had a young daughter. My phone buzzed. Derek, V just left your house, heading your way, get out now. I ignored it. Where is Christina now? Working at a hardware store in Oregon, living under her married name. Sophie's mascara was smudged beneath her eyes. She gave up everything, her art, her identity, her whole life, to protect her daughter from Veronica's revenge. The envelope felt heavy as I picked it up. Inside were photos, Christina's gallery openings, her reviews in art magazines, her rising star suddenly snuffed out. Why are you showing me this? Because Veronica's doing it again. She's already contacted the dean at your art school, planted seeds about your instability. She's building a case just like she did with Christina. My phone lit up again. Evelyn this time. Your dad found the Sterling documents. He's furious. Call him. What exactly did she do to Christina's daughter? I asked. Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. She arranged accidents, small ones at first, a fall at school, food poisoning, a bike crash. Nothing fatal, just enough to send a message. The elderly couple paid their bill and left. Rain drummed harder against the windows. And now she's targeting me. No, Sophie leaned forward. She's targeting everyone you love. Derek's garage. The health inspection wasn't random. Your friend Evelyn's college recommendation being rescinded. Not a clerical error. My hands clenched into fists. Why are you telling me this? You're her friend. I was Christina's friend first. Sophie's eyes hardened. And I've spent 15 years watching Veronica destroy people. It has to stop. The diner's bell chimed. Through the rain-streaked windows, I saw a familiar car pull into the lot. She's here, Sophie whispered. Remember what I said about Christina. There are worse things than giving up your dreams. I stood, shoving the envelope into my bag. I'm not Christina. No, Sophie's smile was sad. You're worse. You're Sarah's daughter. And that's why she'll never stop until she's erased every trace of your mother's talent from your work. The diner's door opened. I heard the click of expensive heels on linoleum. Hazel, darling. Veronica's voice dripped honey. What a surprise running into you here. I turned slowly. She stood there in her perfect clothes, perfect makeup, perfect smile. But now I saw the cracks, the slight tremor in her hand, the tightness around her eyes. Sophie and I were just discussing art, I said, specifically the Sterling Art Institute's faculty records. The smile flickered. Oh? How fascinating. Sophie, I didn't realize you and my stepdaughter had become so close. We were actually talking about Christina, I pressed. Your sister? The one who disappeared? Veronica's mask slipped for just a second, long enough to see something dark and hungry beneath. Sophie, dear, I think it's time you headed home. Sophie stood, gathering her purse. As she passed me, she whispered, Choose carefully. Some victories cost more than defeat. I watched her hurry out into the rain, leaving me alone with the monster who'd married my father. Shall we discuss this at home? Veronica gestured to the door. Your father's quite concerned about your recent behavior. I thought about Christina, living in exile to protect her child, about my mother's artistic legacy, slowly being erased, about Derek's garage and Evelyn's future. No, I said quietly. I think we should discuss it right here. All of it. Unless you'd prefer the police handle the investigation into Christina's disappearance. Veronica's smile turned razor-sharp. Oh, sweetheart, you really are your mother's daughter. She slid into the booth across from me. Let's talk about what happens to people who threaten my family. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing away any chance of escape. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Dad's face as he stared at the photos spread before him. Christina's evidence, the Sterling Institute documents, everything I'd gathered to expose Veronica. She says you've been stalking her sister, he said quietly, that you've become obsessed. Dad, the restraining order is temporary. His voice cracked. But Hazel, they found those threatening emails on your laptop. My blood ran cold. What emails? To Christina, to Sophie. He pushed a printout across the table. To Veronica's old students, all sent from your account. The words blurred before my eyes. Emails I'd never written, threatening violence against everyone who'd wronged me, all perfectly crafted to make me sound unhinged. She planted them, I whispered. She must have accessed my computer when... Stop. Dad pressed his hands against his temples. Just stop. The doctors think... Doctors? The interview room door opened. Veronica glided in, followed by a man in a white coat. Her eyes were red-rimmed, perfectly portraying the concerned stepmother. Dr. Reynolds specializes in acute psychiatric episodes, she said softly. He's agreed to help us understand what's happening. The doctor sat down, opening a file. Your father and stepmother have described some concerning behaviors, Hazel. Paranoid delusions, conspiracy theories, escalating aggression. This isn't real, I laughed, the sound sharp and desperate. Dad, you can't believe... We found your mother's paintings, Veronica interrupted. The ones you've been copying, claiming they're your original work, adding dates to make it look like I stole from you when really... My phone buzzed in my pocket. Derek. But before I could reach for it, Veronica continued. And poor Sophie. Having to file a restraining order against you after you threatened her daughter. What? I turned to Dad. That's not... The emails were quite graphic, the doctor said, describing how you'd make her pay for betraying you. Another buzz. Evelyn this time. But the officer by the door stepped closer, watching my movements. We just want to help. Veronica reached for my hand. I jerked away. A short stay at the treatment center, some medication to stabilize your mood. Dad, I pleaded, look at me. You know me. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I thought I did. My phone buzzed a third time. The officer frowned. Phone, please, he said. Protocol for psychiatric holds. The world tilted sideways. This was her endgame. Not just destroying my future, but my credibility. My sanity. Everything I could use against her. Christina, I said desperately. Call Christina, she'll tell you. Your obsession with my sister has to stop. Veronica's voice hardened. She's dead, Hazel. She died 15 years ago. I showed you the death certificate, but she hadn't. That was the mistake. The single thread that could unravel everything. No, I said slowly. You didn't. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear. My phone buzzed one final time. A text preview lit up the screen before the officer could grab it. Found Christina. She's alive. Video proof. Holding for... The phone went dark in the officer's hand. But I'd seen enough. Veronica had too, judging by the way her perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. I think, the doctor said, given the severity of the delusions, immediate intervention would be best. 2 orderlies appeared in the doorway. Dad stood, finally looking at me with tears in his eyes. It's just for a few days, he said, until you're thinking clearly again. I looked at Veronica, at her mask of concern hiding the triumph beneath. She'd orchestrated everything perfectly. The evidence against her would be dismissed as the ravings of a mentally ill teenager. My father would sign whatever papers she put in front of him, and I'd disappear into a system designed to make people doubt their own reality. Just like Christina had disappeared, just like all the others who'd threatened Veronica's carefully constructed world. The orderlies stepped forward with a wheelchair. Standard protocol, they said, for my own safety. But as they reached for me, I remembered Sophie's words. Some victories cost more than defeat. I had to choose. Fight now and prove Veronica right about my instability, or submit and pray Derek's message meant what I thought it did. Okay, I whispered, sinking into the wheelchair. You win. Veronica's smile was radiant with false compassion. But she didn't see me slip the police interview room recording device into my sock, the one that had captured every word of her careful manipulation. Sometimes surrender is just another way to fight. The treatment center's visiting rooms smelled like artificial lemons and despair. 3 days of observation had taught me the camera's blind spots, the staff's rotation schedule, and exactly how long I had before someone noticed the recording device missing from my sock. Christina sat across from me, her hands trembling around her paper coffee cup. She looked nothing like the vibrant artist in those old photos. Her hair was grey now, her eyes haunted. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "If Veronica finds out, she already knows." I slid my phone across the table, showing her the security footage Derek had captured. "You've been watching me for weeks, haven't you? Ever since Sophie reached out?" She nodded, tears welling. "I had to make sure you weren't like her, that helping you wouldn't put my daughter at risk again." The door opened. Veronica swept in, perfectly coiffed even at this early hour. Her smile froze when she saw Christina. "Well," she said softly, "the prodigal sister returns." "Hello, Veronica. Here to fuel more of Hazel's delusions?" Veronica sat beside me, maternal concern radiating from every pore. "The doctors say she's been making excellent progress. We wouldn't want to trigger another episode." I pressed play on the hidden recorder. Veronica's own voice filled the room. "Your obsession with my sister has to stop. She's dead, Hazel. She died 15 years ago." Christina's hands stopped shaking. "I'm very much alive, sister dear. And I brought proof of everything you did, every painting you stole, every student you threatened, every accident that befell my daughter until I agreed to disappear." "Careful," Veronica's voice turned silky. "False accusations can be so damaging to one's credibility. Just ask Hazel about her recent psychiatric evaluation." "That's why I'm not the one making the accusations." The door opened again. Dad walked in, followed by Detective Martinez and Sophie. My father's face was ashen as he held up a USB drive. "The emails," he said. "The ones you claimed Hazel sent. The IP address traces back to our home computer, during hours when Hazel was documented at work." "Michael, don't," his voice cracked. "Just don't." Detective Martinez stepped forward. "We have a warrant to search your devices, Mrs. Mitchell, and statements from multiple former Sterling Institute students." Veronica's mask cracked, just for a second. Then she laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You ungrateful little snake," she hissed at me. "I gave you everything, a mother's love, guidance, protection." "You gave me chains," I said quietly. "Just like you gave Christina. Like you gave all of them." "I made them better artists." "You stole their work," Christina's voice hardened. "Their dreams, their futures. I improved them. Added my expertise, my vision." "Added," Dad interrupted. "Or stole, like you stole my daughter's college fund. The money I thought was going to her tuition." Veronica stood backing toward the door, but Sophie blocked her path. "It's over," Sophie said. "No more manipulation, no more threats. You're all conspiring against me." Veronica's perfectly manicured hands clawed at her throat. "I won't let you destroy everything I've built. I won't—" She lunged for my phone, probably hoping to destroy the evidence, but her designer heel caught on the industrial carpet. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall, right beside my latest painting, the one I'd done in my mother's style, the one the doctors had allowed as art therapy. Veronica stared at it, something breaking in her expression. "You'll never be her," she whispered. "You'll never be Sarah. No matter how perfectly you copy her technique." "I'm not trying to be her," I said. "I'm being myself. That's what terrifies you, isn't it? That I might succeed where you failed?" The detective stepped forward with handcuffs. Veronica didn't resist, her eyes fixed on the painting. "You think this is victory?" she asked softly. "You think exposing me will heal what's broken inside you?" "No," I stood, gathering my evidence. "But it will stop you from breaking anyone else." As they led her away, I caught Christina's eye. She nodded once, understanding passing between us. Some victories don't feel like winning. Some battles leave scars even after justice is served. But watching Veronica's perfect facade finally shatter completely, that felt like freedom. Dad wrapped his arm around my shoulders as we walked out, leaving the artificial lemon smell and the ghost of Veronica's control behind us. Sometimes the greatest act of revenge is simply refusing to become what your monster wanted you to be. The gallery lights cast soft shadows across my mother's paintings. The real ones this time, rescued from Veronica's storage unit, along with dozens of other stolen works. Christina stood beside me, both of us reflected in the glass protecting Summer Storm, Mum's last completed piece. She never could capture light quite like Sarah did, Christina said quietly. That's what drove her mad, you know. Not just the stealing, but the knowing. That she'd never be as genuine as the artists she destroyed. The exhibition, Reclaimed Voices, the Sterling Institute Recovery Project, had drawn hundreds. Former students, art critics, collectors, all here to reclaim what Veronica had stolen, to restore names to unsigned works, to heal old wounds. Dad appeared beside us, his tie slightly crooked. The detective wants to know if you'll testify at the sentencing hearing. I watched a young artist across the room discover her lost portfolio, tears streaming down her face as she traced her signature under Veronica's painted-over name. No, let the others tell their stories. I have something different in mind. Sophie approached, carrying a newspaper. The headline read, "Former art professor pleads guilty to fraud, theft of student works." "She's asking to see you," Sophie said, "claims she has something to say before they transfer her." She always has something to say. I turned away from Mum's painting. But I have work to do. That work waited in my studio. Not the basement room where Veronica had tried to shape me in her image, but a sun-filled space overlooking the city. My easel held a half-finished piece, nothing like Mum's style or Veronica's stolen techniques. Something entirely new. Derek found me there later, as sunset painted the windows gold. The exhibition's a success. They're already talking about touring it nationally. Good. I added another layer of paint, watching the colours blend. They deserve to have their work seen. Their real work. Under their real names. "And what about your work?" He gestured to the canvas. "This is different from anything you've done before." "Because it's finally mine." I stepped back, studying the emerging image. Not what Mum would have painted. Not what Veronica tried to force me to be. Just me. Evelyn burst in, waving her phone. "You need to see this now." The screen showed security footage from the county jail. Veronica sat in her cell, methodically tearing pages from a sketchbook. Each sheet contained perfect copies of other artists' works, as if she couldn't create anything else even now. "She's still doing it," Evelyn whispered, "still trying to steal other people's light." "No." I set down my brush. "She's showing us who she always was. A reflection without a source. A mirror with nothing of her own to show." Dad called that evening, his voice tired but clear. "The divorce papers are filed, and I found something you should see." In his study, he opened Mum's old journal. A letter fell out, dated just before she died. "To my daughter, the artist who will paint her own sky." My hands shook as I read her words. "Don't let anyone tell you which colours to use or which stories to tell. Your art, like your heart, belongs only to you." I thought of Veronica in her cell, endlessly copying others' work. Of Christina, finally free to paint again. Of all the artists reclaiming their stolen voices. "I'm not going to testify," I told Dad, "but I am going to paint her portrait. One last piece showing exactly who she is." "Are you sure that's wise?" I looked at my latest work, at the unique style emerging from the canvas. She tried to make me choose between being Mom and being her. But there was always a third option, being myself. The portrait would show Veronica surrounded by mirrors, each reflecting someone else's art, her own face blank and empty at the center. A warning, perhaps, or maybe just the truth she never could face. "Sometimes," Christina had said at the gallery, "the best revenge is simply creating something your monster could never copy." I picked up my brush again as night fell, ready to paint my own sky. Behind me, Mom's journal lay open to her final words. The greatest masterpiece you'll ever create is the artist you become. Veronica had tried to steal that future, but in the end, she'd only helped me find it.
The silver knife trembled in my hand as I sliced through the prosciutto, paper-thin pieces curling onto the marble counter. Everything had to be perfect tonight. The first time meeting my son's fiancée deserved nothing less than immaculate presentation, even if my gut churned with an inexplicable dread. I'm Sutton, and after 22 years of being the only woman in Liam's life, I was about to share that privilege with someone else. The doorbell chimed. My knife slipped, nearly catching my finger. I wiped my hands, smoothed down my silk blouse, and crossed the hardwood floors that had witnessed every milestone of Liam's life. Now they'd carry the weight of this moment too. Mom. Liam's embrace was warm, familiar. He'd grown taller than me years ago, but I still saw traces of that little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. This is Chloe. She stepped forward, all polished edges and calculated grace. Designer dress, perfectly styled hair, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Harrison, I've heard so much about you. Please call me Sutton. I extended my hand, but she moved in for an embrace instead, her expensive perfume overwhelming my senses. Her grip was just a fraction too tight, lasting a moment too long. Your home is absolutely charming, Chloe said, her gaze sweeping across my carefully curated living room. So, cozy, though I imagine it must feel quite empty now that Liam's moved out. The slight pause before cozy didn't escape me. Neither did the way she kept her hand possessively on Liam's arm. Wine, I offered, leading them to the dining room where candles flickered against crystal glasses. It's a Bordeaux from 2015. Oh, I only drink natural wines now, Chloe said. The sulfites, you know. But don't worry about me. Liam jumped in. The table looks amazing, Mom. You didn't have to go through all this trouble. It's no trouble, I said, watching Chloe examine the place settings with the scrutiny of a health inspector. I wanted tonight to be special. Over appetizers, Chloe steered the conversation toward my career. Liam mentioned you used to be quite the powerhouse attorney. What made you step back into consulting? Mom chose to focus on raising me, Liam said proudly. How noble, Chloe smiled. Though it must have been difficult watching your colleagues advance while you simplified your life. The prosciutto turned to ash in my mouth. Actually, consulting offers more flexibility and, oh, that reminds me, Chloe cut in, turning to Liam. Remember that partner position I mentioned? They're fast-tracking my application. We might need to postpone our house hunting. That's wonderful, Liam beamed at her. Mum, Chloe's been killing it at her tech startup. Youngest team lead in company history. Impressive, I said, noting how she'd masterfully deflected attention from my career to hers. What exactly does your company do? Oh, it's quite complex. Corporate restructuring mainly. Actually, I'd love your insight on some legal matters, given your experience. She paused, fork hovering over her untouched salad. Have you ever handled cases involving intellectual property theft? The question landed like a stone in still water. Specific, targeted. My wineglass froze halfway to my lips. That's quite a specific area of interest, I said carefully. Just professional curiosity, Chloe shrugged, but her eyes held mine with unsettling intensity. You never know when such knowledge might come in handy. The evening continued like a choreographed dance, each step measured, each word weighted. But as I watched Chloe orchestrate every conversation, smoothly positioning herself between Liam and me, both physically and metaphorically, that initial dread crystallized into certainty. This wasn't just about meeting my son's fiancée. This was about something else entirely. The way she probed about my past cases, her calculated comments about my career choices, the subtle digs wrapped in sweet smiles. She was gathering ammunition. As they prepared to leave, Chloe embraced me again. Thank you for such an enlightening evening, Sutton. I can't wait to really get to know you. The threat beneath her words was clear as crystal. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Maya's garden always smelled like jasmine and secrets. I sat across from her on the weathered deck chairs, clutching my coffee mug like a lifeline, while describing last night's dinner with Chloe. She kept asking about my old cases, Maya, specific ones, the kind nobody remembers unless they're digging. Could be professional interest, Maya said, but her frown betrayed her doubt. She works in tech, right? Corporate restructuring. I set down my mug, which makes her questions about intellectual property theft even more interesting. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Chloe's planning a surprise visit to the wedding venue. She'd love your input. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the gravel driveway of Rosewood Manor. Chloe stood on the sweeping steps, designer sunglasses perched on her head, tapping away at her phone. No Liam in sight. "Oh, Sutton," she air-kissed my cheek. "I hope you don't mind. Liam got caught up at work. But I thought this would give us a chance to bond." The venue coordinator led us through the historic mansion. Chloe dominated the tour, speaking over the coordinator about her vision for each space. I noticed how she positioned herself between me and the coordinator, controlling the flow of information. The library would be perfect for the ceremony, the coordinator suggested. "Oh no," Chloe laughed. "That's much too small. We're thinking the grand ballroom. My guest list alone is 300 people." My stomach clenched. 300? Liam wanted a small wedding. Things change. Chloe's smile didn't waver. "Speaking of change, I've been meaning to ask about your consulting work. Any interesting cases lately?" "Nothing that would interest you. Don't sell yourself short. I heard you handled the Martinez tech merger last year. Fascinating case, especially the intellectual property disputes." The coordinator excused herself to take a call, leaving us alone in the ballroom. Chloe's heels clicked against the hardwood as she circled me. "You know what I find interesting," she said. "How certain sensitive documents from that case disappeared right before the ruling." My pulse quickened. "That's privileged information, is it? I suppose that's why it never made the papers." She examined her manicure. "Imagine the scandal if it had." "What do you want, Chloe?" "Want? I want us to be family, Sutton. I want you to trust that I know what's best for Liam, and I want you to step back from the wedding planning. Completely. And if I don't, then we'll have to have a very different conversation about trust, and documents, and statute of limitations." The coordinator returned, chattering about table arrangements. Chloe transformed instantly, all smiles and enthusiasm. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at the Martinez case files. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Interesting day at Rosewood. We should talk." Ethan, Chloe's co-worker. Before I could respond, Liam called. "Mom, Chloe told me about the venue. Isn't it perfect?" "It's grand." I hesitated. "Liam, are you sure this is what you want? It seems very different from what we discussed." "I know it's not what we planned, but Chloe has this amazing vision, and her connections could really help my career. You understand, right?" I thought of the Martinez files, of Chloe's veiled threats, of my son's voice tinged with hope and uncertainty. "Of course I understand," I lied. "Whatever makes you happy." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and typed Chloe Bennett into the search bar. If she wanted to dig into my past, I could do some digging of my own. The search results loaded: employment history, social media profiles, news articles. But it was a small item from 3 years ago that caught my eye. A brief mention of another engagement, ended abruptly, amid rumors of corporate espionage. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. "There's more to Chloe than anyone knows. Meet tomorrow." I typed back, "Name the place." The Martinez file sat heavy on my desk, a reminder of past mistakes and present threats. Chloe thought she had me cornered, but she'd made one crucial error. She'd threatened the wrong mother. The coffee shop buzzed with morning chatter, but Ethan's voice cut through it like a knife. She did the same thing at her last company, got engaged to the CEO's son, gained access to sensitive information, then disappeared when the merger went through. I studied him across the table, rumpled shirt, shadows under his eyes, fingers drumming nervously on his paper cup. Not exactly the picture of a reliable witness, but his details were too specific to ignore. Why are you telling me this? Because I've watched her do it again. The engagement, the careful questions, the way she positions herself. He leaned forward, and because I saw what happened to James Porter, the name hit me like a physical blow. James Porter, the CEO's son from Chloe's previous engagement. I'd seen the name in my research, but nothing more. What happened to him? Ethan's phone buzzed. His face went pale. She's here, at the office. I have to go. He hurried out, leaving me with more questions than answers. I pulled out my phone, searching for James Porter. Nothing recent, but an archived article caught my eye. Tech Air steps down after security breach scandal. My phone rang. Liam. Mum, you'll never believe it. Chloe just got promoted to Director of Operations. We're celebrating tonight at Laurent's. You'll come, right? The same restaurant where I'd celebrated making partner 15 years ago. Of course she'd choose that. Wouldn't miss it, I said, already pulling up Laurent's seating chart from my old client files. That evening, Chloe held court at the best table in the house, the one with sightlines to every entrance. She wore cream silk, but her smile was all teeth. Sutton, I'm so glad you could make it. She gestured to the man beside her. This is Marcus Chen, our new investor. He was just telling me about his daughter's wedding in Bali. I recognized the name from my Martinez case files, the ones Chloe had threatened me with. How lovely, I said, watching her hand rest possessively on Liam's arm. Though I thought you wanted a small ceremony. Oh, that was before, Liam said. But with Chloe's promotion, we thought why not dream bigger, Chloe finished. Actually, Marcus's company is looking for legal consultation. I mentioned your expertise. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Take the job, become complicit, refuse, risk Liam's future. I'm quite selective about my clients these days. Mom, Liam frowned, this could be huge for both of us. My phone vibrated, an email from an anonymous account. James Porter, Meadowbrook Recovery Center. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to make a call. In the restaurant's elegant bathroom, I read the full email, medical records, police reports, psychiatric evaluations. James Porter had suffered a complete breakdown after the merger scandal. His father's company had collapsed, their family fortune decimated. The bathroom door opened. Chloe. Everything all right? You seemed distracted. Just work. I met her eyes in the mirror. Tell me, do you still keep in touch with James Porter? The slight widening of her eyes was all I needed. That's ancient history, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Though speaking of history, how is the Martinez case documentation? All properly archived? You know what's interesting about archives? I turned to face her. They never really disappear. They just wait for the right moment. Careful, Sutton. Her mask slipped for just a second. Some moments can't be taken back. She left, her heels clicking against marble. Through the door, I heard Liam's laugh, bright and trusting. My phone buzzed again. Another email. Meeting tomorrow, 2 p.m., Meadowbrook Recovery Center. JP. I looked in the mirror, seeing not just my reflection, but 22 years of protecting Liam, of teaching him to ride a bike, to stand up to bullies, to trust his instincts. I'd fought for him since the day he was born. I wasn't about to stop now. Returning to the table, I watched Chloe charm Marcus Chen, her hand still on Liam's arm. She'd orchestrated everything perfectly, the promotion, the investor, the trap. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd threatened my son, and she was about to learn why even the most brilliant predators fear a mother's rage. Meadowbrook Recovery Center loomed against the autumn sky, all red brick and barred windows. James Porter sat across from me in the visitor's room, his expensive sweater hanging loose on his frame, hands trembling as he stirred his untouched tea. "She'll destroy him," James said, "just like she destroyed me. And the worst part, he'll thank her for it." A nurse passed by, checking on us through the reinforced glass. James flinched at the movement. "Tell me about the merger," I said. "There was no merger. That was the point. She got access to everything. Security protocols, trade secrets, client lists. By the time anyone realized what was happening," he pressed his fingers to his temples, "my father lost everything. 40 years of building our company, gone in 6 months. My phone buzzed. A text from Liam. 'Mom, need your help. Chloe's arranged a meeting with Marcus Chen. Says you're joining the legal team.' James noticed my expression. 'Let me guess. She's already positioning herself.' 'What do you mean?' 'The legal team was how she started with us. Said she needed to understand the company structure. Next thing I knew, she had access to everything.' He leaned forward. 'Has she asked about your old cases yet?' 'The Martinez files.' My hands went cold. 'You need to understand something,' James continued. 'She doesn't just take information. She makes sure you're complicit. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped.' Another text from Maya. 'Emergency. Ethan's been in an accident. Hospital says it wasn't an accident.' The room suddenly felt too small. I stood, but James grabbed my wrist. 'Wait, there's something else. Something about her background.' The door opened. A nurse entered. 'Mr. Porter, time for your medication.' 'No, please, I need to tell her.' But they were already leading him away, his last words lost in the institutional quiet. At the hospital, I found Ethan in intensive care. 'Car brake lines,' Maya whispered. 'Police are investigating.' My phone rang. 'Chloe.' 'Sutton, I just heard about poor Ethan. Such a tragedy. You know, he's been under so much stress lately. Apparently, he's been accessing confidential company files after hours.' The threat was clear as crystal. 'What do you want?' 'Just what we discussed. The Martinez documentation, your legal expertise for Marcus's company, and—' a pause. 'A mother's blessing for her son's happiness.' Through the hospital window, I watched Ethan's monitors beep steadily. He'd tried to warn me, and now— 'The meeting's tomorrow at 10, Chloe continued. 'I've already told Liam you'll be there. He's so excited about us all working together.' After hanging up, I sat in the hospital corridor, my hands shaking as I opened my laptop. The Martinez files stared back at me. Evidence of corporate theft, manipulated depositions, a case that could have ruined lives if the truth had come out. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. 'Grace Harrison trying to reach you. Urgent family matter.' 'Grace, my mother. 20 years of silence, and she chooses now.' A text from Liam appeared. 'Mom, you're coming tomorrow, right? This means everything to me.' I closed my eyes, seeing James Porter's trembling hands, Ethan's still form, the Martinez files that could destroy everything I'd built. Chloe had orchestrated it perfectly, each piece falling into place, each person exactly where she needed them. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She thought she was dealing with a lawyer, a consultant, a woman bound by professional ethics and maternal guilt. She forgot she was dealing with a mother who'd spent 22 years protecting her child. I opened my phone and dialed the unknown number. 'Hello, Grace, we need to talk.' Sometimes, to save someone you love, you have to be willing to burn everything else to the ground. I looked at Ethan's hospital room one last time, then walked out into the gathering dark. Tomorrow, I'd sit in that meeting. I'd smile and nod and play my part. And then I'd show Chloe exactly what happens when you back a mother into a corner. Because there are two types of revenge in this world, the kind that destroys you and the kind that sets you free. I was done being destroyed. Grace's house hadn't changed in 20 years. Same faded curtains, same porcelain cats, same heavy silence that had driven me away. She set down her teacup, hand steady despite her age. "I should have warned you about Chloe Bennett," she said, "or whatever name she's using now. My cup froze halfway to my lips. What do you mean? 3 years ago, she was Charlotte Brooks. Before that, Claire Blackwood. Grace pulled out a manila envelope. She's been running this scheme since she was 19. Different names, different cities, same pattern. Inside were newspaper clippings, police reports, photographs, young women with Chloe's face but different hair, different clothes, different lives. Each story ended the same way: destroyed companies, ruined families, missing documents. My phone buzzed. Ethan, finally conscious. She knows I talked to you, not safe. Delete everything. How did you get all this? I asked Grace. Because 5 years ago she was Catherine Barnes, and she almost destroyed your father's company. Grace's voice cracked. That's why he... The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Chloe's sleek car in the driveway. Back door, Grace whispered, shoving the envelope into my hands. I'll stall her. I slipped out just as Chloe's voice filled the house, all warmth and charm. Mrs. Harrison, what a lovely surprise. Liam mentioned you and Sutton might reconnect before the wedding. In my car, hands shaking, I spread out the evidence. Each article revealed another piece. Corporate espionage, identity theft, strategic marriages. But it was the last photo that stopped my heart. Chloe with my father, taken months before his suicide. My phone lit up. Liam. Mom, where are you? Chloe says you missed the meeting with Marcus Chen. Everything okay? Before I could respond, another text arrived. Chloe. Interesting chat with your mother. Shame about your father's gambling debts. Or was it embezzlement? Records can be so... confusing. The steering wheel felt cold under my fingers. Through Grace's window, I watched Chloe embrace her, playing the perfect future granddaughter-in-law. But her eyes scanned the room, hunting. My phone buzzed again. Maya. Police called. Ethan's gone. Left against medical advice. No one knows where. Then Chloe. The Martinez files by midnight, or Liam learns everything about Grandpa's accident. Your choice. The envelope felt heavy in my lap. 20 years of running from my father's disgrace, of building a new life, of protecting Liam from our family's shadows. Now Chloe held all the threads, pulling them tight, but she'd made a mistake. She thought she was blackmailing a daughter ashamed of her father's sins. She didn't know she was threatening a mother protecting her son. I started the car just as Chloe emerged from Grace's house. Our eyes met across the driveway. She smiled, raised her hand in a wave that felt like a sentence. My phone lit up one last time. An unknown number. Storage Unit 23 Central Avenue. Password, redemption, come alone. JP, James Porter. Even from his hospital bed, he was still fighting. I pulled away from Grace's house, watching Chloe's figure shrink in my rearview mirror. She thought she had won, thought she held all the cards. But I had something she didn't. A mother's desperate love, and nothing left to lose. The storage facility waited ahead, its rows of metal doors holding who knew what secrets. Unit 23 stood at the end of a dark row, its padlock gleaming like a promise, or a threat. I reached for the lock, remembering Liam's smile, my father's shame, Chloe's perfect mask. The password felt like ashes in my mouth. Redemption. Sometimes, to save someone you love, you have to be willing to face the darkest parts of yourself. The lock clicked open. The rehearsal dinner sparkled with false promises. Crystal glasses caught the light, casting prisms across white tablecloths, while Chloe worked the room like a conductor leading her orchestra. Every laugh, every toast, every casual touch on Liam's arm, a perfectly choreographed performance. I clutched James Porter's USB drive in my pocket, its edges digging into my palm. One file upload, one moment of truth, and everything would shatter. Mom! Liam appeared beside me, happiness radiating from his face. Thank you for being here. I know things have been tense, but seeing you and Chloe finally getting along. My throat closed. The evidence felt like lead in my pocket. Bank statements, falsified documents, proof of Chloe's previous identities. Everything needed to save him. Everything needed to break his heart. Speech time. Chloe clinked her glass, drawing all eyes. I want to thank everyone for coming, especially my future mother-in-law, Sutton. Despite our rough start, she's shown me what true family means. Our eyes met across the room. Her smile never wavered, but her message was clear. Check and mate. My phone buzzed. Maya. Ethan found dead in his apartment, police calling it suicide. The room spun. Chloe raised her glass higher. To family, to trust, to new beginnings. To new beginnings, the crowd echoed. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against hardwood. Heads turned. Liam frowned. Mom? I need some air. The balcony door clicked behind me, muffling the celebration. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, downloading the files from Porter's drive. The door opened. Chloe's perfume reached me before her voice did. Beautiful night for ruining lives, isn't it? I turned. Her perfect mask had slipped, revealing something cold and familiar underneath. My father's eyes before the end. I know what you did to Ethan, I said. Tragic, wasn't it? Depression's such a terrible thing. She moved closer. Just like your father's gambling problem. Amazing how history repeats itself. Stay away from my son. Your son? She laughed softly. Liam's already mine, and after tonight's announcement about the merger with Marcus Chen's company, his future will be too. Unless what? Delete the files, Sutton. All of them. Walk away. Let your son be happy. My finger hovered over the upload button. One press and everything would end. The door opened again. Liam stepped out, champagne in hand. Everything okay out here? Perfect, darling, Chloe purred. Your mother was just giving me some marriage advice. He beamed at us both, this beautiful boy I'd raised alone, who still saw the world in simple truths, who still believed in happy endings. Actually, Chloe continued, why don't you share our news, Liam? Mom, he grabbed my hands, eyes shining. Marcus offered me a position running the new merger division. Chloe helped arrange everything. We're moving to London next month. The phone slipped from my fingers, shattering on the balcony floor. With it went Porter's evidence, my last chance at exposure. Isn't it wonderful? Chloe wrapped her arm around Liam's waist. A fresh start, far from old complications. I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw his joy, his trust, his complete faith in the woman beside him, saw how thoroughly she'd won. Mum, say something. The words stuck in my throat, because in that moment, I finally understood. This wasn't about saving Liam anymore. This was about choosing between destroying his happiness or watching him walk into a trap I couldn't prevent. Congratulations, I whispered. Chloe's victory smile flashed in the darkness. To family, she raised her glass. My son pulled me into a hug, while over his shoulder, Chloe mouthed two final words, game over. And it was. Because sometimes protecting someone means letting them go, even when you know they're walking straight into the arms of the enemy, even when it breaks everything you are. The wedding venue's grand hall echoed with last-minute preparations when Grace arrived, clutching a worn leather portfolio. Her hands trembled, but her voice carried across the space. Catherine Barnes, she called out. Chloe froze at the altar, where she'd been directing flower arrangements. The name hit like a thunderclap in the quiet room. I'm sorry. Chloe's smile remained perfect, but her knuckles whitened around the roses she held. Or was it Claire Blackwood? Charlotte Brooks? Grace moved closer, each step deliberate. You've had so many names, I lose track. Liam appeared from the side room. What's going on? Nothing, darling. Chloe reached for him, but Grace opened the portfolio. Your father didn't gamble away our company, Sutton. Grace's voice cracked. She did. 5 years ago, when she was Catherine Barnes, engaged to Thomas Mitchell. I stepped out from behind the altar, James Porter's USB drive now connected to the venue's display system. The screens flickered to life, showing document after document, bank statements, identity changes, police reports. Mum? Liam's confusion turned to concern. What is this? Ask her, I said softly. Ask her about Ethan. Chloe's mask slipped for just a moment. Liam, they're trying to ruin our happiness. Your mother can't stand seeing you move on. And your grandmother lost everything, Grace continued. Just like James Porter's family. Just like Thomas Mitchell's. Just like every family you've destroyed. The doors burst open. Dylan rushed in, holding his phone. Liam, you need to see this. The merger documents. They're not what we thought. The company's being stripped for assets. Everyone's losing their jobs. Chloe's laugh turned sharp. You don't understand business, Dylan. Sometimes sacrifices, like Ethan. I stepped closer. Was he a necessary sacrifice? Ethan killed himself, she snapped, then caught herself. But it was too late. How did you know that? Liam asked quietly. His death wasn't announced as suicide. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Show him, Grace whispered. I pressed play. Security footage filled the screens. Chloe entering Ethan's building the night he died, leaving hours later with his laptop. He was unstable, Chloe's voice hardened. He would have ruined everything. Just like your father, Sutton. Just like everyone who stands in my way. My father, I said, was protecting me from you. And now I'm protecting my son. Protecting him? She laughed. Look around, Sutton. Look what you've done. You've destroyed his happiness, his career, his future. Some mother you are. No, Liam's voice cut through her words. You did that. When you lied, when you killed Ethan, when you tried to turn me against my own mother, everything I did was for us. Chloe reached for him, desperation cracking her perfect veneer. We can still have it all. London, the merger. The merger's fake, Dylan interrupted. The documents just leaked. It's all been a scam from the start. Chloe's eyes darted between us, calculating escape routes. But Grace stood by one door, Dylan by the other. And on the screens above, her past played out in damning detail. It's over, I said quietly. Over? Her laugh turned hysterical. You think this is over? Ask your mother what really happened the night your father died, Sutton. Ask her who really... I know what happened, Grace stepped forward. Because I was there, and I have proof. Chloe's composure shattered completely. She lunged for her bag, but Liam got there first, pulling out a gun. Insurance, she said wildly. Just insurance. For what? Liam's voice broke. For killing my grandfather, for planning to kill my mother. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Chloe's face contorted into something unrecognizable. No longer the perfect fiancé, but something raw and desperate. You're all the same, she spat. Weak, sentimental, thinking love conquers all. Love is a weapon, and I wielded it perfectly. No, I said, watching my son's heart break and heal in the same moment. Love is what brought you down. A mother's love. The one weapon you never understood. The police burst in as Chloe made her final desperate move. But in the end, it wasn't the evidence that destroyed her. It was the truth she never grasped. That sometimes the strongest vengeance isn't in destruction, it's in protection. The demolition crew arrived at dawn. I watched from my porch as they dismantled the gazebo where Liam had proposed to Chloe, each crack of splintering wood echoing like thunder. Maya appeared beside me, coffee in hand. You sure about this renovation? Through the window, I could see Grace in my kitchen, sorting through old photographs. She'd found one of my father earlier, his smile untouched by what was to come. Some structures can't be fixed, I said. You have to tear them down completely. The newspaper on my lap carried Chloe's sentencing on the front page. 5 to 10 years for corporate fraud, with additional charges pending for Ethan's death. Her mugshot showed a stranger, no makeup, no mask, just hollow eyes and bitter truth. Mum? Liam stood in the doorway, boxes in his arms. Where should I put Dad's old files? The study, Grace called out. We're organizing everything properly this time. Everything. Including the truth about my father's death, which Grace had finally shared. How he'd discovered Chloe's true identity. How he'd tried to warn me. How his accident, hadn't been an accident at all. The demolition crew's machinery growled louder, and I watched another piece of my old life crumble. "The detective called," Maya said quietly. "They found Ethan's last video message. He recorded everything. I don't want to know." The words surprised me even as I said them. Some truths don't heal anything. Inside, Liam and Grace worked together, rebuilding our family's story one document at a time. Through the window, I saw him laugh at something she said, a sound I'd almost forgotten. Dylan's car pulled up, and he hurried over with a stack of papers. "The merger's officially dead. The board voted this morning. Everyone keeps their jobs." "And Marcus Chen? Singing like a bird to reduce his sentence." Dylan grinned. "Turns out he's got quite a lot to say about Chloe's previous identities." The last wall of the gazebo fell, revealing the garden beyond. My garden. Not the pristine showcase Chloe had demanded, but the wild, honest space my father had loved. "They're bringing James Porter home next week," Maya mentioned. "His doctors say the breakthrough probably saved his life." A butterfly landed on the railing, its wings catching the morning light. For a moment, it looked like the one from my father's favorite photograph. The one where I'm 3 years old, chasing butterflies while he watched, proud and protective. "You never told Liam everything," Maya said softly, "about what Chloe planned for after the wedding. He doesn't need to know." I watched the butterfly take flight. Some burdens are meant for mothers alone. Grace appeared with fresh coffee, her hands steadier than they'd been in years. "The contractors hear about the new plans." I stood, feeling the weight of the past fall away with each step toward the future. Through the dust of demolition, I could see the foundation, strong, unchanged, waiting for something new to rise. "Mom," Liam called from inside, "I found something weird in Dad's old files. Something about a safety deposit box." I exchanged glances with Grace. Some secrets weren't meant for today. Some truths would wait for their own time, their own story. "Coming," I called back, but paused at the door. The butterfly had returned, landing now on the space where the gazebo had stood. Maya touched my arm. "You okay?" I thought of Chloe in her cell, of Ethan's final warning, of my father's sacrifice, of all the ways love could turn to poison, and poison to protection. "I'm ready," I said, and stepped inside to help my son rebuild our home. Because that's what mothers do. We protect, we survive, we rebuild. And sometimes, in the ruins of what was lost, we find something stronger than revenge, the truth of who we really are. The butterfly took flight one last time, disappearing into the morning light, leaving only shadows and possibilities behind.
I stare at the birthday cake, watching 45 tiny flames dance across the frosting. Each one mocks me, reminding me how many years I've wasted believing family meant something sacred. My son Jason stands behind his wife Emily, his hands on her shoulders, while she wears that plastic smile I've grown to despise. "Make a wish, Mother," Emily says, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. I close my eyes, not because I believe in wishes anymore, but because I need a moment to compose myself. The room feels smaller than it did this morning, like the walls of my own home are closing in around me. "Come on, Mom," Jason urges, and I hear that new edge in his voice, the one that appeared right after he married her. I'm Summer, and this is the last birthday I'll celebrate in my own house, though I don't know it yet. The flames blur as I lean forward. One breath, and they're gone, leaving only wisps of smoke and the lingering scent of burnt wax. The silence that follows feels heavy, loaded with unspoken accusations. "Well," Emily says, already reaching for the knife. "Let's cut this, shall we?" "I can cut my own cake," I say, reaching for the knife. Our fingers brush, and she pulls back as if burned. "I'm only trying to help, Summer. You always make everything so difficult." "Do I?" I set the knife down harder than necessary. "Like when I helped with the wedding? Or when I watched Lily every weekend while you two were finding yourselves during that spiritual retreat?" Jason steps forward. "Mom, please, not today." "When then, Jason? When do I get to speak in my own home?" Emily's face hardens. About that. She glances at Jason, who suddenly finds the floor fascinating. We've been meaning to talk to you. The cake sits forgotten between us, its perfect white frosting starting to sag in the afternoon heat. Lily, my granddaughter, shifts uncomfortably in her chair, her phone forgotten in her lap. We think it's time for a change, Emily continues. This arrangement, it's not working anymore. Arrangement? The word tastes bitter. This is my house. I raised Jason here after his father died. And we're grateful, Emily says, though her tone suggests anything but. But Jason and I need our own space, to grow as a family. We are a family. Mom, Jason finally looks up, and I see Emily's influence in his eyes. We found you a nice apartment. It's close to the community center, and... You what? The room spins slightly. You've been planning this? Behind my back? Don't be dramatic, Emily sighs. We're trying to help you start fresh. You're still young enough to build your own life. I laugh, and it sounds strange even to my ears. My life is here, with my son, my granddaughter. That's the problem. Emily steps closer, dropping her voice. You can't let go. You're suffocating us with your presence. The knife gleams on the table between us. I watch my hand reach for it, not to threaten, just to hold something solid while my world crumbles. Emily flinches backward. Jason, see? This is exactly what I've been telling you. Mom, put the knife down. Jason's voice shakes. You're proving her point. I wasn't. But it doesn't matter what I wasn't going to do. The story's already written in their minds. You have until tomorrow evening, Emily says, her voice steady now that she has the upper hand. We'll help you pack. Tomorrow? The word comes out as a whisper. You're giving me 24 hours to leave my home? It's for the best. Jason won't meet my eyes anymore. We'll make sure you're settled. Lily stands suddenly, tears streaming down her face, and runs upstairs. Nobody follows her. I look at the cake, at the smoke still rising from the candles, at the knife in my trembling hand. 45 years of memories in this house, and they're giving me 24 hours to pack them away. Happy birthday to me, I say, and carefully set the knife down. Won't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not yet. But as I walk upstairs to start packing, I make a different kind of wish. One that has nothing to do with candles and everything to do with justice. The motel room smells like stale cigarettes and broken dreams. 3 cardboard boxes contain what's left of my life. Photo albums, legal documents, and the few precious mementos I managed to grab before Jason practically shoved me out the door. Mark sits in the threadbare armchair, watching me pace between the bed and window. You need to eat something, Summer. He pushes a takeout container toward me. I need my house back. My fingers trace the windowsill, collecting dust. You should have seen Emily's face when she called the police, like she was the victim. She called the cops? Mark straightens in his chair. When I refused to leave, said I was trespassing. A bitter laugh escapes me. In my own home, the one I paid off 15 years ago. What about the deed? In Jason's name, I transferred it last year when... I stopped pacing. When Emily suggested it would help them qualify for a better mortgage rate. God, I was so stupid. Mark's phone buzzes. He glances at it, then holds it out to me. Speaking of Emily, it's a social media post, a photo of Emily, Jason, and Lily in front of my house. The caption reads, Fresh start for our little family. Sometimes the hardest choices are the most necessary. # blessed, family first. The phone slips from my trembling fingers onto the bed. She's already redecorating, I whisper. Lily texted me pictures. They're painting over the height marks on the kitchen doorframe. 22 years of measuring Jason, gone under a coat of Moroccan sunset, or whatever the hell Emily calls it. Summer! A knock at the door cuts him off. We freeze, exchanging glances. Another knock, more insistent. Mom? Jason's voice. I know you're in there. Mark's car is outside. Mark raises an eyebrow, asking silently if I want him to answer. I shake my head, and move to the door myself, taking a deep breath before opening it. Jason stands there, holding a small box. He looks uncomfortable in his expensive button-down shirt. Emily's taste, not his. "You forgot some things," he says, not quite meeting my eyes. "Did I forget them, or did you prevent me from taking them?" He shifts his weight. We thought you might want these." He holds out the box. Inside are some old Christmas ornaments and a few framed photos. "How generous of you both." The words taste like acid. "Tell me, was this before or after she changed the locks?" "Mom, please. You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Am I? Tell me, Jason, when did you start believing her lies about me? Was it before or after she convinced you to put the house in your name?" His face hardens. "Emily was right. You always do this. Twist everything to make yourself the victim." "The victim?" I step closer, forcing him to look at me. "I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to keep that house. I was there for every scraped knee, every broken heart, every triumph and failure. And now you're throwing me away like yesterday's garbage because your wife decided I'm inconvenient? That's not..." He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurts. "You're suffocating us, Mom. Always hovering, always judging Emily's decisions about our family." "Your family?" The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign, almost hysterical. "I'm your family! And Emily is my wife!" He shouts back, then immediately looks around, embarrassed by his outburst. "Look, we've set up an account for you. There's enough money for a few months' rent while you figure things out." I stare at him, this stranger wearing my son's face. "Keep your money. And your pity." "Mom!" "Tell Emily congratulations." I start to close the door. She finally got what she wanted. What's that supposed to mean? Ask her about Richard. The name makes him flinch. Ask her what happened to her last husband's mother. Or better yet, don't. Ignorance seems to be working so well for you. I shut the door on his confused face and lean against it, listening to his footsteps fade away. When I turn around, Mark is watching me with a mixture of concern and admiration. "Richard?" he asks. "Emily's ex-husband." I move to the window, watching Jason's car pull away. "I did some digging last night. Turns out I'm not the first mother-in-law she's displaced, just the latest in a pattern." "Summer?" Mark's voice carries a warning. "What are you planning?" I touch the window glass, cool and solid under my fingers. "I'm planning to show my son exactly who he married, and this time, I'm not playing nice." The coffee shop feels too bright, too normal for the conversation we're about to have. Derek, Emily's brother, sits across from me, his fingers drumming against his cup. Mark arranged this meeting, calling in favors I didn't know he had. "Emily doesn't know I'm here," Derek says, his voice barely above a whisper. "If she found out, she won't." I lean forward, but I need to understand what happened with Richard. Derek's fingers stop drumming. "Richard was a mistake, like the others." "Others?" He glances around the cafe, paranoid. "Emily has a pattern. She finds men with close family ties, especially to their mothers. Strong families fascinate her because we never had one." A barista drops a cup somewhere behind us, and Derek jumps. I notice the slight tremor in his hands, the dark circles under his eyes. "You're afraid of her," I realize. "You don't know what she's capable of." He pulls out his phone, scrolls through photos. Richard's mother, Margaret, before Emily. He shows me a picture of a vibrant woman in her 60s, surrounded by family. And after, the next photo shows the same woman, but diminished somehow. Isolated, broken. Emily convinced Richard that Margaret was manipulating him, trying to control their marriage. Sound familiar? Derek's laugh is hollow. Within a year, Margaret was in a nursing home. Richard thought it was his idea. My coffee turns bitter in my mouth. And Richard? Lost everything in the divorce. Emily had already transferred most of their assets. Derek swallows hard. He didn't survive the winter. They called it an accident. The cafe suddenly feels airless. Are you saying? I'm not saying anything. Derek's voice sharpens. I'm just telling you what happened. What always happens. A text lights up my phone. It's from Lily. Grandma, something's wrong. Mom found your old letters to Dad. She's burning them in the backyard. My hands start shaking. Those letters, written to Jason's father before he died, were all I had left of him. Excuse me, I manage to say, standing so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. Derek grabs my wrist. Wait, there's more you need to know. My letters. Emily's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. I sink back into my chair. She told the family last night. Derek won't meet my eyes. She's using it to cement her position. Jason's overjoyed. She's 40, I whisper. She told Jason she couldn't have more children. That's why they never... Emily always knows what she needs to survive. Derek finally looks at me. The baby will give her total control. You'll never get Jason back now. Another text from Lily. Mom's saying weird things about you, about how you tried to poison her relationship with Dad from the beginning. She has proof. Proof? I say out loud. Derek's expression changes. Oh God, the diary. What diary? Emily keeps a diary of evidence, things she twists and manipulates. Conversations taken out of context, innocent moments reframed as threats. She's been doing it for years. My phone buzzes again. This time it's from Jason. How could you, Mom? Emily showed me everything. Don't contact us again. The cafe walls start closing in. Derek reaches across the table, his voice urgent. Listen to me. You can't fight her directly. She's already positioned you as the villain. The pregnant wife versus the jealous mother-in-law. Who do you think people will believe? Then what am I supposed to do? Watch her destroy everything I have left? No. Derek pulls out a USB drive, slides it across the table. You're supposed to be smarter than Margaret was, than Richard was, than I was. What's on it? Everything. Financial records, medical records, the truth about what happened to Richard. He stands up. But be careful. Emily has friends in strange places. If she suspects you have this, why are you helping me? Derek pauses, and for a moment, I see the weight of years of guilt in his eyes. Because someone needs to stop her, and because I'm tired of watching mothers lose their children. He walks away, leaving me with a USB drive that feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds and another text from Lily. Grandma, please. Mom's different when you're not around. I'm scared. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of every decision that led to this moment. When I open them, I know what I have to do. Emily wanted a war. Now she'll get one. The USB drive sits on Mark's kitchen table like a loaded gun. My laptop hums as it copies Richard's financial records, each file a bullet aimed at Emily's carefully constructed life. You're crossing a line here, Mark says, pouring more wine. Once you start this, there's no going back. I scroll through another document, my fingers trembling slightly. Emily crossed the line when she burned those letters. Summer? Look at this! I turn the screen toward him. 3 months before Richard's accident, Emily transferred nearly everything into offshore accounts. The timing... A knock at the door freezes us both. Mark moves to answer it, but I grab his arm. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of Lily's face, tear-streaked and pale. Jesus, Mark whispers, opening the door. Lily, what happened? She bursts in, looking over her shoulder, like she's being chased. Mom's lost it. She's telling everyone you're mentally unstable, Grandma. That you've been stalking her, threatening her and the baby. My stomach turns. What baby? She's pregnant, Lily's voice cracks. But that's not... I found something in her study. About Richard. The USB drive feels heavy in my pocket. What about him? Pictures, documents. She has this whole file about how she... Lily stops, wrapping her arms around herself. I think she hurt him, really hurt him. And now she's saying things about you that sound just like... Headlights sweep across the windows. Lily freezes. That's Dad's car, she whispers. I didn't tell them I was coming here. Mark moves quickly, grabbing my laptop. Back door, now. We slip into the darkness of his backyard, just as Jason's voice carries through the house. Mark? We know they're here. Lily grabs my hand, pulling me toward the garden gate. Mom has the police on speed dial. She's going to say you kidnapped me. I didn't. I know. She squeezes my hand. But she has evidence. She always has evidence. We make it to my car, parked a block away. As I start the engine, I see Emily emerge from Jason's car, one hand protectively over her stomach. Even from here, I can see her triumphant smile. She's going to destroy you like she destroyed Richard's mother, Lily says as we pull away. Unless what? Unless we destroy her first. Lily pulls out her phone, showing me a video. I recorded her talking to someone named Marcus last week. About Richard's accident. About what really happened. My hands tighten on the steering wheel. Lily, are you sure you want to? She's poisoning Dad against everyone who loves him, just like she did with Richard. Lily's voice hardens. And now there's going to be another baby, another person for her to control. Police sirens wail in the distance. I take a sharp turn, heading toward the highway. Where are we going? Lily asks. Somewhere safe. I glance at her. But first, you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't just about exposing Emily anymore. This is about survival. I know. She clutches her phone like a weapon. That's why I made copies. Of everything. My phone buzzes with a text from Mark. Emily filed a restraining order. Police are looking for you both. Be careful. Another message follows, from Jason. How could you take my daughter? Emily's having contractions from the stress. If anything happens to our baby, I switch off the phone, feeling something cold and certain settle in my chest. Emily wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine. Sometimes the only way to fight a monster is to become one. Grandma? Lily's voice is small in the darkness. What are we going to do? I think of the USB drive in my pocket, of Richard's mysterious accident, of Emily's perfectly crafted evidence. We're going to give your mother exactly what she expects. Sometimes the best way to spring a trap is to step right into it. The highway stretches ahead, dark and empty. Behind us, blue lights flash in the distance. But for the first time since this all began, I'm not running away. I'm running towards something. And Emily has no idea what's coming. The motel room feels like a cage. Lily sleeps fitfully on one bed while I sit at the small desk, sifting through Richard's financial records on my laptop. Each document reveals another layer of Emily's manipulation. Bank transfers, forged signatures, carefully orchestrated accidents. My phone vibrates. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park, 1 a.m. Come alone. Derek. I glance at Lily, then at the clock. 12:37 a.m. The park is deserted when I arrive. Streetlights casting long shadows across empty benches. Derek emerges from behind a tree, looking more haunted than ever. Emily knows about the USB drive, he says without preamble. She's already moved the money. What money? The insurance payout from Richard's death. She's been keeping it in a hidden account, but now... He runs a hand through his hair. She's desperate, Summer. She's talking about leaving the country. With my son? With everything. The baby, Jason's inheritance, all of it. He steps closer. But that's not the worst part. A twig snaps somewhere in the darkness. Derek flinches. Marcus is back, he whispers. The man who helped her with Richard's accident. I saw them meeting yesterday. Cold fear grips my spine. You think she's planning? I think she's cornered. And cornered animals are the most dangerous. He presses something into my hand. A burner phone. If anything happens to me, everything I know is on here. The real story about Richard, about our parents, about... Headlights sweep across the park. Derek disappears into the shadows as a familiar car pulls up. Emily steps out, her pregnancy barely showing under her expensive coat. Well, she says, smiling that perfect smile. Isn't this cozy? How did you... Derek's always been predictable, she pats her stomach. Family loyalty only goes so far, doesn't it? More cars arrive. Jason emerges from one, looking confused. 2 police cruisers block the park exits. Officers, Emily calls out, her voice trembling perfectly. This is her, the woman who's been threatening me and my unborn child. That's not true. We have the evidence, Mrs. Harrison, one officer says, approaching with handcuffs. Multiple witnesses saw you following Mrs. Harrison today. We found threatening notes. What notes? Emily pulls out familiar-looking paper, the same type I used for those letters to Jason's father, the ones she burned. You're sick, Summer. You need help. Jason, I turn to my son. You can't believe this. But he's looking at the ground again, one arm around Emily's shoulders. The doctors said the stress could harm the baby, Mom. You have to stop. The baby that conveniently appeared right when you needed it? The words escape before I can stop them. Emily's face crumples in practiced anguish. How dare you? First Richard's baby, now mine. What did you say about Richard's baby? Something flashes across Emily's face, real fear quickly masked. Officers, please, I don't feel safe. As they approach with handcuffs, I make a decision. I reach for my phone, ready to send everything on that USB drive to every contact I have. Emily sees the movement. She's got a weapon! Everything happens at once. The officers lunge forward. Jason shouts. Emily smirks. And in that split second, I see it all. How perfectly she's orchestrated this moment. How completely she's turned my own son against me. But she's forgotten one thing. Mom! Lily's voice rings out across the park. She steps into the light, holding up her phone. I got it all. The whole conversation, including what you just said about Richard's baby. Emily's mask slips. For just a moment, I see the real her, the calculating predator beneath the perfect wife facade. Lily, she says, reaching out. Sweetheart, you don't understand. I understand everything. Lily's voice shakes but holds firm. And so will the police, once they see what's really on that USB drive. The one Derek gave you tonight wasn't the only copy. The park falls silent, except for the soft whir of police radios. Emily's hand drops to her stomach, but this time the gesture looks less protective and more like she's holding on to her last weapon. Jason looks between us all, lost and confused, and I realize this is it, the moment where everything either falls apart or comes together. The truth is within reach, but so is total destruction. The question is, which path leads to which? The police station's fluorescent lights make everything look sickly and unreal. I sit in the interrogation room, my wrists raw from the handcuffs, while Detective Morris reads through Emily's carefully crafted evidence. Multiple threatening messages, he says, spreading out papers. Stalking complaints, witness statements about your erratic behavior. Those are forgeries. Like the USB drive you claim to have? He raises an eyebrow. The one our tech team couldn't access? My stomach drops. I think of Derek's face in the park, his warning about Emily moving money. Of course she'd have someone ready to corrupt the files. The door opens. Emily walks in, supported by Jason. She looks perfectly fragile in her designer maternity dress. I'll make this brief, she says, touching her stomach. The doctors are concerned about my blood pressure. You don't have to be here, Jason tells her, all protective concern. I do. She dabs at her eyes with a tissue. Summer needs to understand what she's doing to this family. Detective Morris steps out, giving us privacy. I notice he leaves the door slightly open, probably recording everything. Drop the act, I say. We both know you're not really pregnant. Emily's face crumples. Jason, do you hear how she's still trying to hurt us? Even now? Mom, stop. Jason's voice is hard. We have the medical records, the ultrasounds, forged like everything else about her. Like Richard's baby? Emily's voice turns sharp. The one you claim What exactly are you accusing me of, Summer? The trap springs shut. I realize too late what she's done. Led me straight into making accusations that sound completely unhinged. Tell them about Marcus, I try. About the insurance money. Marcus? Emily looks confused. Jason, isn't that the name of your mother's imaginary friend from her diary? What diary? She pulls out a worn notebook. My handwriting, but words I never wrote. Pages of paranoid ramblings about conspiracies and imaginary conversations. We found it when we were packing her things, Emily says softly. That's when we realized how sick she'd become. That's not mine. Mom, Jason steps forward. We've arranged for you to get help. A facility in Vermont. No! I stand up so quickly my chair crashes backward. I'm not crazy. Lily has proof. She recorded. Lily's recording was corrupted, Emily interrupts. Just like that mysterious USB drive. Technology can be so unreliable when you're unstable. The walls seem to close in. Where is Lily? Safe, Emily says. Away from your influence. What did you do to her? She's at a boarding school in Switzerland, Jason says, where you can't reach her. My legs give out. I sink to the floor, understanding finally hitting me. Emily hasn't just taken my son and my home. She's taken my granddaughter, my evidence, my credibility, everything. The facility has an excellent success rate, Emily continues, her voice dripping with fake concern. Once you're better, maybe we can discuss supervised visits. With the baby. She takes Jason's hand, placing it on her stomach. The gesture is so perfectly calculated, it makes me sick. You won't get away with this, I whisper. Emily leans down, her mask slipping for just a moment. I already have. Richard tried to expose me too, right before his accident. And Derek, well, accidents happen all the time. What did you say about Derek? She straightens up, mask back in place. Oh dear, she's getting agitated. Jason, perhaps we should… I'll call the doctor, he says, reaching for his phone. No, wait! But the serum already leaving. Gee. Emily's theatrical sniffles echoing down the hall. Detective Morris returns with a psychiatrist. They speak in low voices about involuntary commitment, about my paranoid delusions. My phone sits on the table, dead and useless. The USB drive is corrupted. Lily is gone. Derek is… I don't want to think about what Emily's words implied about Derek. Through the window, I watch Emily and Jason walk to their car. She turns back, just for a moment, and smiles. That same smile she wore when she burned my letters, when she took my home, when she stole my son. The psychiatrist approaches with admission papers, and I realize with cold clarity that this isn't rock bottom. This is just the beginning of how far Emily plans to make me fall. The psychiatric facility's garden is beautiful, but it's still a cage. 3 weeks of medication and therapy have left me foggy, compliant. Exactly what Emily wanted. I watch other patients shuffle through their daily routines, wondering if they too were put here by someone else's lies. Then Mark appears on my scheduled visiting day, and everything changes. Derek's alive, he says without preamble. He's in intensive care, but he's talking. The fog in my mind clears instantly. What happened? Car accident that wasn't an accident. He recorded everything before Emily's guy ran him off the road, including her confession about Richard's death. My hands shake as I process this. The USB drive was a decoy. The real evidence is with Richard's sister in Boston. She's been building a case against Emily for years. A nurse watches us suspiciously from across the garden. I lower my voice. Why are you telling me this now? Because Emily's planning to leave the country tonight. Private jet to Switzerland, where Lily is. Mark's eyes meet mine. She's taking Jason and the insurance money. All of it. She can't. She can. Unless what? Mark slips me a phone and a key card. Unless you stop playing by her rules. The next hours blur together. A fire alarm. Confusion in the halls. Somehow, I'm in Mark's car, racing toward the private airfield where Emily's escape plan is already in motion. We arrive to see Emily directing movers loading a private jet. Jason helps, looking lost and tired. There's no sign of her pregnancy bump anymore. No need to maintain that lie when she's about to disappear. Hello, Emily. She spins around, her perfect mask slipping for just a moment. How did you… Jason, call security! Before you do that, I hold up my phone. You might want to hear what your brother has to say. Derek's recorded voice fills the air. Emily arranged everything. Richard's accident, the insurance fraud, all of it. She's done this before, and she'll do it again. Lies! Emily snaps. But Jason has stopped moving, really listening for the first time. The baby was a lie too, I continue. Just like it was with Richard. Just like everything about you is a lie. Jason! Emily's voice turns sugary. Your mother is clearly having another episode. We should… Should what? I step closer. Have me committed? Stage another accident? How many people have you destroyed, Emily? I don't know what you're talking about, but her eyes dart toward the jet. Richard's sister sends her regards. She's very interested in reopening the investigation into her brother's death. Emily's mask cracks completely. You stupid woman! You have no idea what you're doing. Jason, get in the plane. Jason, I say quietly. Check her phone. Look for messages from Marcus about Derek's accident. Don't you dare! Emily lunges for Jason, but he's already got her phone, reading with growing horror. Mom? His voice sounds young suddenly. What is all this? Oh, for God's sake! Emily snarls, dropping all pretense. Fine. You want the truth? Richard was weak. His mother was interfering. Just like your precious mommy here. Sometimes people need to be removed. Like Derek? Jason's face has gone pale. Derek should have kept his mouth shut. Just like you should have trusted me instead of digging into things that don't concern you. Police sirens wail in the distance. Emily's face contorts with rage. She reaches into her purse, and everything explodes into motion. A gun appears in her hand. Jason shouts. I move without thinking, decades of maternal instinct driving me forward. The gunshot cracks across the airfield. Pain blooms in my shoulder, but I'm still moving. Emily's gun clatters away as we grapple. All the rage, all the pain of the past months pours out as we fight. I won't let you hurt anyone else, I gasp. Emily laughs, high and broken. You still don't get it, do you? I always win. Always. Not this time. Police flood the airfield. Jason is shouting something. Emily tries to twist away, to reach for her fallen gun, but I hold on. Even as my vision blurs from blood loss, I hold on. Because this isn't about winning anymore. It's about stopping the cycle, protecting what's left of my family. Even if it costs me everything. The last thing I see before consciousness fades is Jason's face, tears streaming down his cheeks as he finally sees the truth. The hospital room is quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. My shoulder throbs, but it's nothing compared to the weight of the manila envelope in my lap. Inside are Emily's full confessions, extracted during hours of police interrogation. Every manipulation, every crime, every carefully orchestrated tragedy. Jason sits in the visitor's chair, looking at his hands. We haven't spoken since the airfield, since he watched his wife try to kill his mother. The silence between us feels like another wound that won't heal. Lily's flight lands tonight, he finally says. Mark's picking her up from the airport. I nod, unable to find words that don't taste like ashes. Did you know? His voice cracks. When you gave Emily the house deed last year, did you know she was planning this? I knew something wasn't right. The envelope crinkles under my fingers. But I wanted you to be happy, to have the family you deserved. The family I deserved. He laughs, hollow and broken. I helped her destroy everything. I believed her lies about you, about Derek, about… He stops, swallowing hard. I can't fix this, can I? Before I can answer, Derek appears in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. His injuries from the accident are still visible, but his eyes are clear. They're moving Emily to maximum security, he says. She tried to bribe a guard. Jason flinches at his wife's name. I watch him struggle with the weight of everything he's learned. How Emily used him to access Richard's insurance money. How she manipulated him into turning against me. How every moment of their marriage was built on calculated lies. The house is yours again. Jason stands abruptly. I've already signed the papers. And Mom… He reaches for words that won't come. I know, I say, but I don't know what I know anymore. The victory feels empty, tainted by the cost. Derek clears his throat. Richard's sister wanted you to have this. He hands me a small box. Inside is a simple silver locket, the one from the photo of Richard's mother, before Emily destroyed her life. She said you'd understand, Derek adds quietly. I do understand. The locket represents everything Emily tried to break: the bonds between mothers and children, the trust that holds families together. But as I hold it, I realize something else. I've become what I fought against. In my quest for revenge, I wielded the same weapons Emily used: manipulation, secrets, calculated strikes at the heart. "I should go," Jason says. "Lily will need... Someone should be there when she gets home." Home. The word echoes strangely. "Jason!" I call as he reaches the door. The height marks on the kitchen door frame. He turns back, confusion crossing his face. Emily painted over them, but they're still there, under the surface. I touch the locket. Some things can't be erased, no matter how hard someone tries. Understanding dawns in his eyes. He nods once, sharply, and disappears down the hall. Derek settles into the vacant chair. "Emily asked to see you." "No. She says she has more secrets to share. About Jason, about..." "I don't care." I close the locket with a snap. "Her secrets can die with her." He studies me for a long moment. "You won, Summer. She's going to prison. The truth is out. Why doesn't it feel like enough?" Through the window, I watch Jason cross the parking lot, shoulders bent under invisible weight. In my hand, the locket feels both lighter and heavier than it should. "Because there are no winners here," I say. "Only survivors." The monitor keeps beeping, marking time in a world that feels permanently altered. Somewhere, Emily sits in a cell, probably already planning her next move. Lily's plane crosses the ocean, bringing her back to a home that's both familiar and forever changed. And I sit here, holding a dead woman's locket, wondering if revenge and justice were ever really the same thing. The truth didn't set anyone free. It just gave us different chains to carry.